That's the makeup I use, so,
Oh, you probably
It's-
raised screen.
you know, let's see if it has it, but
Well, this thing here writes pretty
the
good.
jewelry I could wear.
Pass them on to the next
Right.
counselor if you leave, or
It's pretty cool that.
Holy shit.
Supposedly you can take all your documents and write on them, but I haven't figured that quite. I
Yeah,
haven't
I mean,
figured that
look,
one.
I mean, this,
OneNote.
Wow.
I got it.
that's an unbelievable steal.
Heck, it's changing so quick.
I know it isn't it?
Once you have something
Just
out.
put something else.
Okay. If it's not something you don't use, it's a problem, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Denise? How are you for a second? Right. Never mind. Oh, yeah.
It's a win for the city.
Oh, absolutely.
Or they could be.
Walker!
I think, I don't know, who is it? I'll go ask him away.
That is, yep. It was hidden behind someone's picture.
I'll swing it. Thanks. I remember you said you were bilingual.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah,
You guys ready?
Anyway,
Good evening. I'm calling to order the workshop today, December 18th, 2017. The first item on the workshop is an update on the High Elm and Academy Street intersection projects.
Good evening. My name is Don Ettinger. I work with Goral Palmer. We're a consulting engineering firm in the Portland area. We're here tonight to discuss the what we call the Auburn Intersection Improvements Project. Been working with Tony Bollier, city engineer, as well as the DOT. Aurel Gourneau is a representative for DOT. He may be here tonight. So what I have for you tonight is a relatively brief presentation to discuss this project. And then certainly open up for comments as we complete that. This slide here presents kind of a background or an agenda of what the topics will be that we'd like to present in front of council. They're going to include a little bit of background. We're going to talk about the study area. We're going to discuss the original project scope, which was approved by the city. And then we've completed some preliminary analysis, and we're finding that the scope is changing a little bit. So we'd like to present those findings to the city, and then we'll briefly discuss budget and schedule, give you a summary of some of the meetings we've participated in. So the original project goals and purpose of the project was to shift traffic from High Street and Academy Street onto Elm Street. And we'll have some graphics to show you visually what that might look like. As part of that process, we're looking to eliminate a couple of intersections within this street network, and we're proposing one new intersection. In total, there's about 5 intersections that are within the study area. Work will also include pedestrian improvements, which we'll get into. In terms of stakeholder involvement, this project was initiated by the city. It was sponsored by your local MPO, which is ATRC. It has been funded through DOT with state and federal money, and the DOT is the lead agency on this design project. So this graphic here provides an overall study area. Looking at it, you'll see to the left-hand side of the graphic is Minot Ave. That is one border of the project. To the far right is Main Street. So the study area includes Minot Ave and Main Street, and also High Street, which is between the two, and includes Academy and Elm Street. Specifically, the circles represent the 5 intersections that were part of the original project scope. And those intersections include the Minot Ave High Street and Academy, Main and Academy, Main and Elm and Minot. As part of the original scope, The primary traffic movement that the city sees through this area from, say, the Turnpike to get you over to New Auburn and to Lewiston are these routes that you see here. It includes using High Street from Minot Ave as well as using Academy. Part of the project goal is to shift that traffic off of High Street and Academy and shift it over to Elm Street. The green arrows represent the pattern change. Specifically at each intersection, as a result of that shift of traffic, there will be some changes that will occur. So the next few graphics will kind of summarize those changes. The first intersection here is Minot and High Street. The goal would be to remove that traffic signal. Today you have a traffic signal there right near Roy's Burger. This project would remove that signal, and it would make movements in and out of High Street as right turn movements only. So if you're coming up High Street, you could not turn left anymore to get onto Minot Ave. Traveling down High Street to Academy, right now it's a two-way stop. This project would propose a four-way stop. So right now it's uncontrolled on High Street. You can free flow through that intersection. At Maine and Academy, there's an existing signal there today. As part of this project, we would remove that signal. We would still provide full access. People could still turn left and right out of the, but it would be unsignalized. What we would propose to do is to move that signal from Academy and Maine and move it up Main Street to Elm Street. So we'd propose a brand new signal there. The idea is that we would provide the signal there because the major traffic would be shifting onto the Elm Street corridor. And then on the other end, Elm Street and Minot Ave, that's an existing signalized intersection today, but with the additional anticipated traffic, we would be making some geometric modifications there. We'd basically be providing a double left turn lane coming up Elm Street onto Minot Ave. So that was really our original project scope. We have been working on it for a few months, and we've done some traffic analysis and some preliminary design, and we're finding that the goals of the project are not necessarily panning out like we had originally thought. So we have done preliminary traffic analysis and prepared a traffic memo, which is attached in your kit of information that was provided to you. We had a stakeholder meeting, and as a result of that stakeholder meeting, we provided a second traffic memo. I think it's called traffic assessment. We have also developed concept plans. These are about 25% level complete plans. And after our stakeholder meeting, we developed a revised concept plans, and a PDF of that information was provided in the package provided to City Council. And then finally, when we developed our original concept plans, we prepared a project memo that summarized some of these changes that we were finding, and we presented that to the stakeholder group and had a meeting which kind of drove some of the changes that we made. But we did provide a copy of that project memo in your documentation for reference. So what did all of the information tell us? What we found was, for starters, the 5 intersections that were part of this original scope, we're actually recommending a 6th intersection be included in there. It's High and Elm Street. Currently, it's classified as a high crash location, and if we're providing additional traffic through the Elm Street corridor, we figure there's some safety improvements that need to happen. And I'll go into a little more detail a little later in the presentation. We had shown this graphic a little earlier. This is the existing traffic movements using High Street and Academy. What we found through our traffic analysis was, while the goal was to shift all traffic to Elm Street, this is what we found actually was a result of the analysis and the project scope. It's only a partial shift is what we're seeing. So traffic heading from Lewiston and New Auburn to the Turnpike would be shifted onto the Elm Street corridor. I mentioned that that traffic typically would use Academy and High, but since we're prohibiting left turn movements at the Minot Ave intersection, that traffic would need to go up to the Elm Street corridor. But what we found is the eastbound traffic, they don't do the shift, they don't need to do the shift, we're not deterring them from doing the shift. So we're finding the eastbound traffic is staying on High and Academy. So that's one of the primary changes we're seeing in the project scope. In summary, at the intersections, the Minot Ave and High Street intersection, we were proposing to remove that signal, and we are removing it in part, but we are recommending it stay there. Under normal operations, it would operate as an unsignalized intersection. The traffic on Minot Ave would be free-flowing and would not be obstructed by the High Street traffic. However, there's an existing crosswalk there today. It's a 4-lane section, and we're recommending for pedestrian safety to keep pedestrian buttons and the ability for the pedestrians to stop the traffic to allow for the pedestrian crossing. In addition, for those that are familiar with this area, it's very close to a railroad crossing, an at-grade railroad crossing on High Street. And there's a signal benefit when trains come through that crossing. There is a benefit to allow the signal to allow the vehicles to queue or to clear out of the High Street intersection, the High Street approach. So for 2 reasons, we're recommending keeping the signal there. When we don't have pedestrians and we don't have any trains, it will operate as an unsignalized intersection.
Excuse me if I could interrupt.
Certainly.
Would that just be permanently green on both directions, or would it be dark as in no power?
It would be green.
Thank you.
And it would just stay continuous green until either a train came through or a pedestrian pressed the button. These next few intersections do not change as part of the scope. The High and Academy, we're still proposing as a 4-way stop. Maine and Academy, we're still proposing to remove that signal. Maine and Elm, we're still proposing to install a signal there. And then Elm and Minot, we're still proposing some geometric improvements, providing a double left turn lane coming out of there. The last intersection is the new one, the High and Elm, added into our scope. Through our research, we were able to determine it is a high crash location. To our surprise, it actually is ranked the highest crash location in the entire county, not just the state. And it's the 12th worst in not just in the city, it's the 12th worst in the state. So it does rank quite high. We believe there's some mitigation measures have already been taken at that intersection. And I think the safety is improving, and we have some ideas on how to continue to improve the safety there. So with the increased volume on Elm Street, we are recommending some sight distance improvements. There are some objects that block your sight lines at that intersection. And then, while not mentioned, but as part of some of the slides, pedestrian improvements are included at all the intersections, so we'd be looking at making ADA compliant pedestrian sidewalks and crosswalks at these intersections. In addition to that, the Minot Ave section between High and Elm, there is no sidewalk presently, and this project would include constructing a sidewalk on the school side or the west side between those 2 intersections. So in summary, the major scope changes are keeping the signal at Minot and High. We do need to make some safety improvements at High and Elm, and it's only really a partial shift of traffic. The eastbound traffic does not shift into the Elm Street corridor. In terms of budget, this project is funded $615,000. 80% of it is federal money, 10% is state, and 10% is city. There's an additional funding source of $180,000 for the Minot Ave sidewalk. And I believe through the 3-party agreement that any cost overruns would be the city's responsibility. In terms of schedule, we're looking to submit what we call a draft PDR, which is a preliminary design report. It's about 50% plans in February, so a few months from now. Public meeting on this project in March. We're looking to generate about 75% complete plans in April and May of next year. Then we start the right-of-way process, which DOT is leading, and it is a long process. It could take anywhere from 8 to 12 months to do. So that process starts. We're looking to have final bid documents in the spring of 2019 with construction in that 2019 construction season. And then a quick summary of some of the meetings that have occurred on this project that have involved the city and ATRC and Maine DOT. Kickoff meeting was in March of this year. We had the stakeholder meeting in September. We recently completed a site visit on the sidewalk on Minot Ave. That was a recent add to this project. and then obviously tonight's city council update meeting. So with that said, that completes my presentation, and I certainly open it up to questions or comments.
First of all, thank you very much for putting this together and being here tonight to explain it. I'm going to open this up to questions by the City Council, starting off with Councilor at Large Young.
The way I understand this will be creating almost an additional loop of a rotary. If you're coming down Washington Street, you'd have the option of going down High Street. You could turn on to Elm Street and then come back to where Roy's Steakburger is, but you wouldn't be able to take a left there. You'd have to continue to go around the other part of the rotary back down Washington Street before you could turn onto High Street again, right?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I was following you.
Okay. I'm coming down Washington Street. I go down High Street. I could go down Academy Street, or I could go straight on High Street, turn on Elm Street on the left.
Correct.
Back over to Minot Avenue. When I come back to Minot Avenue, but that's where you'll still have a green light intersection. I won't be able to take a left there.
Off Elm Street?
No, off Minot Avenue, where you get to Roy's Steakburger.
So basically taking a left southbound on Washington Avenue onto High Street. There'd
Can't
be
turn
no
left.
That is correct. That's
So
a
a
movement that's
person
allowed
would-
today that would be prohibited with this design.
You'd have to continue to go around the rotary, as we call it, get back onto Washington Street. Then, after you go by the credit union, you can take a right then. So it's almost like a additional loop of a rotary.
That would be correct.
So any,
The alternative would be to turn onto Elm Street and then use High Street off of Elm Street. That would be your alternative, as opposed to driving all the way up to High Street.
so the businesses, Village Inn that's down in that area would make it a little bit harder for people to get there. It may be easier in some respects because there should be fewer traffic there, but the expression is, something says, well, how do I get there? Well, you can't get there from here.
Yes.
You got to go around.
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Councilor?
When you're thinking about pedestrian improvements, can you talk a little bit about what those would be? I know you said that there would be a signal, crossing signal. What else?
So Maine DOT, on pretty much any infrastructure improvement project they do now, they look at pedestrian improvements. So most of these intersections are traffic signal related improvements, but we're required to look at existing sidewalks in the area. Do they comply with current standards? And if they don't, we look to make upgrades and improvements. So near crosswalks, there's usually a tip down, a landing area where you are now flush with the roadway. Those have certain design standards. So generally speaking, we'll be upgrading all of those on each end of crosswalks. For example, I think High and Academy may only have 1 or 2 crosswalks. We would propose 4, basically all of the legs. So we'll just look at consistency within the corridor and trying to make those types of improvements. Same down on Main Street. I think there's some new crosswalks we would propose along Main Street.
And when you had the stakeholder meeting in the community, was it a large turnout?
When I refer to the stakeholder meeting, it was not, the public was not present at that meeting. It was what I consider stakeholder would be ATRC and the city. It was not only city engineer, public works, but it was also the planning department was present at that meeting. So we had multiple departments within the city, ATRC and Maine DOT, and included in that meeting was the DOT state traffic engineer was involved in that meeting, so it was very helpful.
And as Councilor Young mentioned, for businesses in there, have they been involved or notified or have input or?
As part of this design process, we have not been involved. I don't know if businesses were involved in the planning effort for this project, but there is that public process. We're really just starting our design portion right now, so there will be a public process moving forward where the businesses will be involved, and so they'll have their ability to provide input and comment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I think I found most of my answers with respect to Academy Street closure in your report, and I guess it really is not being pursued because of the level of service at the other intersections. But I guess I guess I've always thought that maybe Academy Street, if it was closed, yes, it does have a impact on level of service, but at the same time, it would have a aesthetic improvement to that area, particularly with respect to the units right on the corner of Academy and Maine. Plus, it would create more of a park setting, you know, with the theater and the park that's in front. So I guess I need to read in more detail the level of service, but I guess the level of service could be improved, but it'd be probably more costly improving the intersection, I guess, particularly at High and Elm.
And that's in part why we wanted to come in front of the city council again, just so that they had an awareness that maybe not all the traffic is being diverted off of Academy, which may have been the original intent, that through traffic would be using Elm in both directions, and to, I think, reduce the traffic on Academy, and maybe to create a different environment there, maybe more pedestrian-friendly environment. So that's one of the reasons why we were coming here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, thank you for your presentation, and we always welcome improvements in the city. But I had a couple of questions. Those meetings, you talked about the stakeholder meetings and previous meetings. Those were all during the day, and there really wasn't anybody involved from the public?
That's correct.
And when the city council approved this, I guess we approved this earlier? Somebody can help me, because I don't remember in my tenure approving this.
The study.
Yeah, this,
Approved the study,
Yeah.
but not the plans?
Tony, can you speak to that, or Dan Goyette? Dan, do you want to come forward, please?
Good evening, Dan Goyette, Public Works Director. The funding for the project and the scope was laid out in 2016 by the council as part of the CIP process. At that meeting, the project originated in the planning department, and they asked through ATRC with engineering to pursue this. Council approved funding for it back then, and this is the impetus of that funding in this project. We're essentially at a point where the goals, as Dawn mentioned earlier, were this is what we're finding we can actually do that makes sense. So that's why we're presenting back to council, because those original thoughts of what being able to close the academy and those things can't really happen that well.
Okay, so it really was approved to go forward for a plan, but the city council didn't approve making the changes that are here. These are recommended by the study.
Correct. As part of the, any project with federal, well, all of our projects, we get approval for funding, and the scope is essentially laid out as part of the CIP process. The council approved the funding for that, and as we don't have the ability to do these types of in-depth traffic analysis and modeling and those sorts of things, so we have to hire consultants to do that. So as the project evolves, we find out more things that, oh, that can't happen or this can happen, and that's where we're at tonight, is to basically lay out this is what is actually makes sense and can happen with this project.
I guess what I'm driving at is I want to make sure that, is there going to be any chance for the public to have input in this and changes being made?
As part of any, well, all of our projects, we have public meetings that are required as part of the federal process, which will happen now, but you have to have a certain level of design to go to the public with our original scope without having any traffic analysis or any data. It's shooting yourself in the foot in that you're presenting things you have no idea if they could even happen. So the next step, as Don mentioned in his layout, is to draft a preliminary design report, which is essentially a 50% set of drawings, which will show you, well, this is what this project would entail. Then the public meeting happens, where you gather input from the public. The DOT is there, Federal Highway sometimes will attend as well, to listen to hear if there's a big objection, is the public wants, no, the crosswalk to be over here, all those sorts of things. The project also at that time gets submitted to the city's complete streets committee, whatever their official term is now, as part of ordinance, and they weigh in as well as on the improvements that are proposed. And we take all that information back, and either it's a full-blown, this project, if the project scope changes substantially, this huge outcry about one part, we'll come back to council for guidance of what you would like us to do, as the council essentially directs us to pursue these types of projects. And then we'll advance the project to design at 75%, where more drawings will be submitted. That's submitted to the state for right-of-way, and that process is done. It could take up to a
So
year.
I guess what I'm driving at is that I personally, right now, before we are going to change a major flow of traffic,
Yep,
and those of us that have lived in the city a long time have gone that way for years.
yes.
And now we're going to divert traffic. We had 21 accidents at Minot and High, 26 at High and Elm. We're going to divert more traffic to High and Elm, where the worst accident intersection in the state is.
That was before a number of the safety improvements that police and public works put in there with the flagging of the stop sign. If you look at just the last, that traffic information is based on a 3-year. If you look at the past year, it's much better because of those improvements. But yes, and that's part of this process, is part of the design is to determine safe levels.
Oh, I understand that, but
Fine,
it's
so-
going to be a major inconvenience for folks to all of a sudden not take the route
Well,
from
this
Academy to High
project
to
is
Minot
to
Avenue, and not be
actually
able to
not
turn
make
left.
it an inconvenience. This is to improve the flow of traffic by eliminating the light at Minot and High.
Well, I'm hoping that public hearings or public input will be allowed, because I think you'll find a lot of folks
Absolutely will be
are going to
allowed.
feel it better. And I also want to hear from our police chief, too, in the interim, about what he thinks the benefits are, because there's going to be a trade-off. You know,
Yep.
people having to go to
And
Elm
that's why
Street and go
planning
up to
wanted
turn
to do
left
this project,
is
so.
going to be a huge difference and a huge inconvenience compared to what people are doing right now, I believe. So we just got to make sure that it's, the benefit's there and it's well
Yep.
presented.
That's why we're here tonight. Yep.
Thank you.
Very good. Start here with Counselor.
Thank you. As the stars would have it, I'm moving into Ward 4. That's the exact direction I'm coming from now. I used to come right up from, Court Street, and right down here, and I was here very quickly. So that's going to take some maneuvering for me, so I'm a personal example of that. First of all, I think that if we can get federal or state funding, to help us with our projects, and they're very costly, I think that we need to pursue them on the one hand. And our focus right now, we're weighing heavily on improving the infrastructure, and that includes, of course, as you know, sidewalks, intersections, all of that. And it has to be a free-flowing small city. Now, when I'm looking at that, I thank you for taking that on and giving us something to consider. I also reiterate other councilors' concerns that the public has not seen it. The public walks through our city. I almost would like to have like a little car and little streets, and actually have a virtual tour so I can see what's going to be happening along this route, to see where I'm going to fly speed through and where I'm going to stop. My concern that I have is flow does increase traffic speed. So when it's easy to keep going and you don't have to stop at certain intersections, then this traffic will speed up. And I remember at the last meeting, I had talked about true stories that happened where 3 people in one situation and myself in another almost got killed because of high speed of traffic. Urban renewal was responsible for speeding up the traffic here in the city. And I would not like to see that if we are removing some of these stops, that we are again contributing to the speeding up of traffic, because that is dangerous. As far as the intersections being green and pedestrians trying to cross those intersections, if I'm becoming accustomed to seeing that this is always green so I can always get going, I may not be paying attention. I mean, I would, but a lot of people may not be paying attention because they normally would keep going because it's always green. Somebody might be crossing that intersection, even though, and as I said, you can put up all the lights and, sounds or whatever you need at intersections, but even though people would be obeying them, the drivers may not be aware or may not be vigilant. So those are some warning signs that I have, in my mind. think basically, green means go to me. So if you see green, you're going to become accustomed to that. So I think we need to take a real long, hard look at that from the perspective of those people who are, these are all walking distances within our city. We're trying to make it more walkable, and this is making it more drivable. So, but if we can look further and see what we can do to improve it, I would be happy with that.
Thank you. And just for the essence of time, we have about 1 minute left. I'm sorry. Councilor Walker?
Might take a little more than 1 minute.
Okay, you got minute 30, and go.
Okay, do you have some kind of a number, tell us a number that turns up Academy Street and Elm Street right now? I tried to look for the exact numbers. We know how much traffic that travels on that street late afternoon, especially.
He does have that information. If you give us,
Okay.
he's gonna look. You can keep
You
going.
can, yeah, and I'll keep talking.
I know.
The Academy Street, no one, most people, I guess, that use that street for whatever reason they use it are not gonna like the idea going to Elm. I understand that part, because I'm not gonna like it either.
Yeah, we
But-
don't disagree.
But Elm Street is a livable street. There are functions that go on that street all the time. If you're going to push all this traffic onto that street, you're making it a lot more dangerous than it is right now, because there'll be no breaks for anybody to get in, out of their apartments, get in and out of the place there that has the women's lib, or whatever we want to call it.
LU.
Yeah, that place right now is impossible to get in and out of with the traffic that's there now. High Street, of course, is a dangerous area. I believe you're going to make it more dangerous because people are going to get mad that have to sit there, and they're going to say to hell with it, and they're going to fly out in front of somebody. And here goes another accident. There are a lot of people that cross all of them little streets, as well as who's going to be able to get in and out of Spring Street, go into Shop and Save or Hannaford, whatever we want to call it. Who's going to be able to come out of that street once you're heading back towards New Auburn? You'll never get out of there. You'll have traffic backed up from Main Street to Minot Avenue. Then when you're talking about the railroad tracks there, I just see this to be that train takes sometimes up to 20 minutes to clear from one end to the other. You're never gonna, I mean, that just puts more time to the traffic that's gonna be backed up, probably all the way down to Broad Street, New Auburn, by the time we all get up Elm Street. Most people turning up Academy Street are not turning up there to go to Minot Avenue to turn right. That's for darn sure. They're going there to turn left, they head to Minot, Poland, and, out towards the outer section. The high school, that's going to be a big problem. You won't be able to turn to go to the high school. There, in the morning, there's 500 cars that turn up to drop off kids and to, head to Fairview and whatever else. We've got a lot of kids, New Auburn area, to go to Fairview. So I think pushing out all this traffic onto Elm Street for the people that live there is probably the worst thing that we could be looking to do right now. So I'm not in agreement with this plan as I see it.
Thank you, Councilor Walker. Councilor Gary?
Thank you. I too have a lot of concerns. Auburn is trying to make the downtown more walkable. We're doing a lot more events, and we've got a lot of those side streets. And I'm afraid if we're not careful, we're going to make it even harder and more prohibitive for people to walk in our downtowns. I am concerned about removing that street light that you're proposing at Academy and Main Street, because you got that housing project that lives across the street. You got people coming across to go to the park. When we have events, people are coming and going. We've got people that walk all over the place to get to the park to have their picnics when it's nice weather in Little Theater Park. We've got kids that come there to do camp there in the summer. I'm not quite as up in arms as I was when I saw you said the stakeholders were just, the government groups, because at least with the city and the newspaper getting the word out that this isn't a project on banana peel and roller skate. This isn't going to be slid through without public notice and people's input, that if people do come forward, they do attend the meetings, then if enough people don't want it, it isn't gonna happen. And I too am concerned of the businesses that have stuck it out in the area, like the Village Inn, for us to hurt their business after sticking it out in Auburn through thick and thin. And I was trying to be brief. Thank you.
You're doing great.
Can I have just 2 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, before, and this might be, and correct me if I'm wrong, on this side, I think the councilors have some really great comments. This process is moving. This is a workshop item. Right. I'm very glad that you all heard some of the concerns that the council had. I do believe they will be addressed in time as the process moves, either towards approval or non-approval. So if we're all in agreement there, maybe we can collect some of the comments that were made by the council and then come back on the second workshop, post or in accordance with your time frame, and we can address all those, if that's okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that Tony, Dawn, myself, the council initiated this project. We didn't ask to do this project, so sometimes, you know, shoot the messenger, don't shoot the messenger, that sort of thing.
No, nobody's going to shoot the messenger here, don't worry
and
about that.
So coming from this, I think we understand your comments loud and clear. I'll talk with Peter and yourself after for a second workshop how we want to address this, but there is federal and state money involved, so that complicates things in terms of scope changes and those sorts of things, so we'll discuss those and move forward.
Let's do that, and let's see, I mean, obviously there's a process involved that's quite lengthy and thorough, so we'll let that process go out, and we'll address all the concerns the council has, and decisions will be made at a later point. Gentlemen, thank you very much for the work you've done on this. Thank you for being here tonight, and you are dismissed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Except for Dan. Dan, you're on the hot seat
I
again.
guess I'm just staying right here.
Yeah, council's going to lock and load. We're going to shoot the messenger tonight. Next item is the acceptance of the Old Portland Road. Dan?
You want to give a brief history of when it was built and that sort of thing? Or is it on here? So, Main Source Homes is requesting that the city accept Portland Way as a city street. The street was constructed in accordance with the city ordinance, and it was approved as part of the planning board as becoming a city street at some time in the future when that road was constructed and they were ready to turn it over. It's approximately 1,380 feet long. It has a hammerhead at the end for plow trucks. It's not a cul-de-sac at the end, so our plow trucks come in, they turn to the right, they back up, and they proceed outward. As a city street, there'd be trash collection, be maintained by the city, school buses would go down it. It's pretty straightforward. I'll open up to questions.
This is pretty straightforward. Councilors, if you've reviewed this, I'll start off with the left with Belinda Gary. If anybody has some comments or concerns about this, let's start over there. And if you don't have anything, that's fine. We'll move along to the next councilor if that's a desire.
How many residents will that serve?
Residents, there's 14 lots.
And is there any homes on it today?
Currently, there are 3 mobiles, 5 ranches, 2 duplexes, 1 duplex is also being built right now, and 3 vacant.
So in other words, most of what...
3 undeveloped.
So in other words, most of what you just mentioned are already owner occupied.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Walker?
I guess this is for you, Dan.
Yes.
Do you recommend the city to take this over, or is it going to be something that we can't fit into our budget, maintaining?
We'll be able to maintain it. It's one of these, I like the design and the way this was built is the way I'd like to see it when the city is going to accept the city street. If public services in the city had their druthers, we never accept another street ever, but that's not realistic, and as part of the planning board is the one that kind of determines what will become. We make recommendations to them whether or not we think this certain type of street should be accepted as a city street in the future when it's built, and this one was built accordingly, so.
So no unseen things underground, like tunnels going through it or
No,
water
no,
running through or
no.
something?
No, not that we know of. As part of the construction process, we have an engineer that goes out and makes sure things are being constructed appropriately, and there are design reports and testing requirements that they have to meet that they've met as part of the construction.
And you're happy with the hammerhead?
Yep, yep.
I'm happy.
Just one quick question. I'm pretty sure I know where this is, and is there potential for additional housing to be built there, or has it
Not
all-
off of this street, no.
Okay.
It hammerheads almost at Washington Street.
At Washington, okay. No, I think it's necessary. We're a city, we're full of streets and houses, and we need to maintain them.
Yeah, just a quick question. The condition of the road currently, how old is it, first of all?
How old is it?
Yeah.
When was it constructed?
They just finished surface pavement in October
Okay,
of
so
this
it's
year.
brand-new pavement?
Yes.
Does that have granite curb, a bit curbing, or
No curbing.
no curbing at all? And at the end of the hammerhead, there's plenty of room so that snow being plowed up is not going to be on people's properties, and we're not going to have issues, so we'll be able to stop there.
Yeah, we have a large right-of-way at the end to be able to push the snow.
Say again?
We have a large right-of-way at the end to be able to put the snow.
Put the snow in, it's going to be out of the way, so no residents are going to have to worry about the
Yep.
piles.
Other than people, the biggest problem we have with hammerheads is people say, hey, look, I have an extra driveway. I'm going to park my boat there. I'm going to park my snowmobiles there. So
Yeah.
that's the only issue we really have.
So that's something that will be like,
Addressed with the homeowner if that did become a problem.
and we won't have to do any snow removal there. You'll be adequate storage for snow?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Hayes?
I guess, you know, if we're going to be a community that's business-friendly, I guess we have to keep our word. If this project was approved by the planning board and the street now meets our standards, I think we need to certainly accept it. I guess my only concern goes back to, was mention of school buses. I think this is an ideal situation. It's only a quarter-mile long. I guess I would not think that a school bus would have to go down that street, that most kids, where it's not a through street too, could walk out and be picked up on the through street.
I would assume so, but that's a school department call.
Correct.
Let the record show that Councilman Hayes is in favor of physical education for all Auburn minors. Counselor?
No questions, it looks good.
Counselor Young?
I checked the street out. I didn't see any hammerhead, but there was quite a bit of snow, so it could have been buried underneath that. It's the developers paid all bonds and everything, because we've had some problems in streets in the past. I think it's nice to see more additional streets. Do we have any say in what the name of the street is going to be, or did they pick it out already?
They have it as Portland Way,
It's off the old Portland Road.
Old Portland Road.
I know the city has problems that have similar names.
Yeah, it will go, Karen's not here. Karen will have the final say in terms of street name, but yes. Our
I
city
think
assessor.
Young Avenue might need to be considered.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask her
Counselor,
a
yes.
quick question? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you were talking, you had meant, I think I didn't hear you, I think I heard you say there was no sidewalks at this time.
There are not, nor there were none proposed as part of the design.
Okay, if there's no sidewalks and we take the street over, will we ever be responsible to put the sidewalks in?
No. Unless the council by some miracle directs us to put a sidewalk on a dead-end street in the middle of the country, then yes, but I don't ever plan on building a sidewalk out there.
There's no sidewalks on Washington Street or Old Portland Road.
Portland Way, Eastman
or
Lane, any of the surrounding.
Danville Corner Road or Old Danville Road.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Goyette. We are all set with you. I appreciate your time tonight. Next item on workshop is domestic partners insurance coverage. Chris Momo? Momo?
Muma.
Muma. I got it, thank you. I know.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Chris Muma, the Human Resource Director for the City of Auburn. Currently, the state of Maine allows for insurance companies to offer domestic partner coverage. Our insurance carrier, Maine Municipal Employees Health Trust, offers this coverage to municipalities who elect to offer this coverage. Currently, the City of Auburn offers single coverage, single parent coverage, and full family coverage. In order to offer domestic partner coverage through our health insurance provider, the council has to approve such coverage availability. The financial impact on the budget would be very minimal. When the finance director budgets for health insurance benefits, she budgets with the understanding that at any time, an employee could qualify for the maximum plan benefit or full family coverage. In other words, any time a single employee is hired, we anticipate that they could potentially get married and cover their family. Because of this, there would be little to no impact on the budget. Because the federal government currently does not offer doesn't recognize domestic partner coverage, any IRS tax implications would be assumed by the employees. Currently, the City of Auburn School Department does offer, through their insurance provider, domestic partner coverage. We currently do not. We will be preparing this to come to a vote in January, and am hoping for your support. And is there any questions or concerns for me at this time?
Instead of going in order, any councilor have any questions at this time? Councilman Titus?
Thank you. First of all, you mentioned single with children and family is what we currently offer right now. So we don't have a employee and a spouse option right now.
We currently consider employee and spouse to be the same as full family coverage.
So you don't, there isn't a separate one?
The price is the same.
All right, there isn't a separate one for family.
Correct.
And when it says domestic partner, that's any domestic partner they chose to designate as their domestic partner?
There are guidelines that they have to follow, set guidelines. For example, they have to own some type of property, either actual property or bank holdings or something like that.
Okay, something that proves that they're definitely, okay.
Correct.
Absolutely not a problem with that at all. And then the IRS thing, you don't know whether they're going to be able to deduct that from their taxes like any other insurance program if they go for the domestic partner option.
Currently, they do not have that option because the federal government doesn't recognize domestic partner coverage. So because health insurance is a tax-free deduction, they would actually pay the taxes. The employee would pay the taxes on the portion that would cover the domestic partner. And that's pretty standard.
Doesn't seem right. I hope there's some lobbying going on to change that. And last but not least, I wanted to just bring up my point about when it comes to health plans and the fact that when you have a family or a domestic partner, you have a huge benefit over a single person working in municipal government, and that they actually get a huge increase in pay because we're paying a hell of a lot more money for their health care than we would for a single person. And that inequity, I think, has got to change going down the road myself. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Does the state of Maine have a common law for, like, wife, husband, whatever, after so many years?
I am unsure. I don't believe they do, but I can check into that for you.
You don't? This really makes, I think a lot of us think a little bit, but I don't think I can support this. I think we have more than enough burden on our plate trying to take care of the people we insure today without adding more to it. So it may be only a little bit, but a little bit piles up every year, and before you know it, we're in, deep doodle around here.
Councilor?
To reiterate something that was answered before, but I just wanted to clarify it in my mind. You said there would be no impact on the budget. Family is family. Is it the same amount of money that the city incurs for the insurance for that family, no matter how many people are in the family?
So family coverage and, in addition, this domestic partner coverage would be the same. Is a husband and wife, or a husband, wife, and any children that they may have. And it's not cost per child. It's the same rate whether you have one child or 15 children.
So the difference would be husband, wife, 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 husband, husband, you know, that would be the difference that in some cases we're not paying for now?
If it would be only those people who qualified. And again, when the finance director budgets, she budgets as though any single person would be eligible for full family coverage. And all husband-wife relation are the same price as full family coverage for a whole family.
Well, I believe if someone comes to work and they have a, you know, a spouse or a significant other, if they want to have insurance, they should be able to have insurance. Their family should be able to have insurance. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Council?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this also is a way to attract people, good people to work in these positions. So even though the cost is minimal, I think that the payoff could be great in terms of people, especially now when it's so important for people to have health coverage and so difficult to know that they can have a domestic partner who is also covered. I think would be a great selling point. Thank you.
Thank you. One last question. When you're talking about minimal coverage, if I read the briefing documents correctly, the employee, the domestic partner, would be responsible for 100% of the increase in healthcare costs on the primary plan?
The tax.
So if the employee were to cover their domestic partner, they would be eligible for the same percentage as any other employee, which is 15, they would have to pick up 15%. What the employee would have to pick up is it would become a after-tax deduction, so the employee would have to pay the taxes on the difference between a single rate and a family rate.
So we're actually, just for further clarification, it would be an increase in the city contribution level for that. In other words, the city would be out of pocket for 85% of the coverage of the domestic partner.
That is correct.
Do you have a preliminary census on how many people this would affect currently?
I estimate at most 5.
5? Is it possible, I know we're in workshop right now, can you give me a rough idea of what the current cost to taxpayers would be on the addition of those 5 individuals on an annualized basis?
A current cost for full family coverage is about $1,600 a month. The city picks up 85%, and the employee picks up 15%. So roughly, is that about $1,200?
Bucks a month, or?
Well, part of that's already been covered by the individual. So it's the delta between the individual rate and the family rate, correct?
Correct.
So if the individual rate's $900?
The individual rate is about $700 a month.
So it's a delta, so you're looking at around $600 additional per month per employee. 36,000 currently, estimated $36,000 increase annually.
So it's $600 for an individual, and it's probably more like $1,400 for the family. So you're looking at right around $800 more a month. If you add that up.
If possible, could you add this as you're bringing this to a vote? I'd like to see, again, any other feedback. Okay, just a little financial note so we can actually see what the implications are. As I read this, I thought there was the domestic partner would be responsible for 100% of their portion of that. In other words, in the public sector or the private sector, a lot of companies will cover the employee and maybe the employee's children, but then anything above and beyond that for a spouse, domestic partner, and whatnot is picked up 100% by the employee. So I just want to see what the difference is here. So I think that covers it. Councilor Hayes, you have one more question on this before we wrap
Thank you,
up?
Mr. Mayor. I guess just a question, I guess it's almost like double dipping. If you have 2 partners, one employed here and wants to be picked up on our coverage, but that partner is employed elsewhere as well, can an individual have two coverages?
Yes, that is legal. It's very expensive, might I add, that they
Well,
were
I guess I
foolish.
raise that question only because if we're picking up, you know, the premium and they're employed and also have coverage where the employer there is picking up coverage, you know, I think there is a question whether there would be a need for us then to cover if that individual is already covered elsewhere.
Okay, so I think there's some more information that needs to be gathered before this comes back up to vote in January, so I look forward to having that. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you bringing up this matter.
Thank you.
Have a great night. The next item is an emergency loan request from the Lewiston Auburn Transit Committee. Marcia Bennett.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The Lewiston Auburn Transit Committee is requesting from both Lewiston and Auburn a short-term loan to deal with a cash flow issue that they're having. Their FY 2017 federal grant has not come through yet, and they are starting to incur or rack up expenses that they are unable to pay their contractor. So if you, the information in the packet, this was discussed prior years. I actually thought that it was a situation that was already addressed and taken care of until we had to actually implement requesting funds from the cities. So now we're making formal requests to both Auburn and to Lewiston to receive a short-term loan up to $150,000, not to exceed $150,000, and it's anticipated that the grant will be in and the funds will be back well within 60 days.
Okay. I'll save my questions and comments to the end. We'll start off to the right with Councilor Young. Any comments on this question?
Not this time.
Councilor Lasagna?
No questions.
Councilor Hayes?
Well, I guess for our, maybe Jill, how's our cash flow? Fine. I guess
we're good.
For Marcia, who should we call in Washington? Do you have a number we should call to prompt the federal government
call
to release
Congress.
money?
This is based on when the actual federal funds were released, by the time they approved the budget. And then there's a process, I believe in the information, there's a process that we have to go through as far as being able to apply for those funds. And our money wasn't available to us to apply for until October of this year. So the October 4th, when Maine DOT finally had their state transportation improvement program passed, we were actually in FY 18 at that point. So it's just a timing thing with Congress. We've been dealing with it. It was, I believe it was last year, we were able to, actually our contractor floated the transit committee $700,000 until we could actually pay them. So the transit committee in this last contract that they signed, they actually said, no, that's not happening again, it's not your responsibility. So that's why conversations with the cities had happened at that time, and that's why I thought that this issue was addressed at that time, that we put in there that we'd have a 60-day period where we'd pay the bills with getting, you know, that short-term, that gap coverage from the cities. So we had a contractor at one point say that they weren't going to submit a bid proposal if they were expected to cover any expenses until federal funds came in. So that's why the contract was changed.
Councilor Titus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed in the packet there was talk about an MRU. Was ever a memorandum of understanding between the cities allowing this to happen?
No, there wasn't.
Because I know that it looked like the history of it was that you guys were going to put it out for bid, and you were thinking about putting a clause in there that would say that the contractor would not be, that they get paid within 60 days, period. But there was no MRU to back that up, you just did it anyway.
The contract was written that way so that, you know, the contractor is expected to be paid within 60 days. It was just never carried through between the transit committee and the cities to have that MOU.
Right, and now we have this emergency situation that we got to vote on, which I, you know, my objection is we're voting it on the same night that we're hearing about it, and I really am up against that. My concern has also been, and as always will be, that we're paying, Auburn's paying 50% of a service that we're not getting 50%. and
This isn't,
We're paying 50% of, you need 300,000.
these are two different
So-
things. You're guaranteed to get the money back as soon as the grant comes in. Right now, the Transit Committee has floated, I believe, once the grant comes in, they'll be drawing down 700,000, so they'll be covering about $500,000 as well, that they've used every available resource that they've had. We've been carrying money forward in federal grants, so it's been able to stretch us out. So it's just a short-term loan. It's not 50% of, you know, the amount of service that's being provided.
No, but I'm just saying that we are in agreement with Lewiston is.
Actually, at this point, you are paying for, okay, we would have to figure out the ratio that we would be requesting 60% from Lewiston and 40% from Auburn. If that, to follow the funding, the funding breakdown.
Yeah. So I guess what I'd like to see going forward is I'd like to see an MRU because I'm looking at the future. Today it's 300,000 you're looking for, or 150 from us or whatever. Next year it could be 200, 300,000 if something changes with the federal funding. And right now it's just a matter of, I guess the general fund is the place to go get the money, and I don't know that that is. I think there's other funding sources out there that may make more sense, that are more automatic, that are, you know, that kind of thing. So I'd like to have us look at that before we go down this road again. But again, I object to the fact that we're workshopping it and voting it on the same night. And that does bother me. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you very much, Councilor Titus. Councilor Fournier, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, real
Please,
quick.
thank
So we haven't already looked at fund balances to see if that would cover in any way from our own fund balances in the city. We have. Okay, that answers that question. The other one is the city incurring additional cost, fees, interest in securing a short-term loan for doing this? And if so, where do we make up that cost?
Mr. Gritton.
There's no real fiscal impact to the city. This is a short-term loan that we're making. We have a promissory note as well, which has been prepared. So I'm confident and comfortable with the situation. I do think it makes sense to have a memorandum of understanding going forward.
Councilor Walker?
Thank you.
Thank you. My only question was, when I first saw this, was 60 days. Are you sure 100% that's enough time?
Yes.
Okay.
The grant actually hasn't been submitted yet. It's in process, and the way the FTA works, it takes up to 30 days for them to get it approved, and that approval is actually waiting on the Department of Labor. Once the grant's submitted, FTA has already, can I guarantee it? No, we're talking the federal government, but FTA has cleared all of their, it's gone through their process already before it's actually submitted. And we don't have any labor issues with any of our grant applications, so actually the turnaround time seems to be a little quicker. Once it comes back from DOL, the FTA automatically executes the grant, and because AVCOG is a direct recipient, as soon as we get the grant, we can have the money in 3 days. So that's the time frame that we're looking at.
Thank you, thank you.
Councilor Gary?
Obviously, since I'm one of the longest-standing members of Lewiston-Auburn Transit Committee, I support this wholeheartedly. We need to do it. Auburn residents and even Lewiston residents need the bus to get around to do their daily living. That memorandum of understanding fell through the cracks, especially in Auburn when we had such an overturn with all the different city managers we had. It got put on people's plates, but it fell through. Now we need it. We can't wait. We got to do it. I don't like to workshop anything and then vote on it unless it's an emergency. This is an emergency, and I support this.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming tonight. I know it's a sensitive topic. The last thing I'll add to it is short-term financial hardships happen to everyone. So get through it. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Last item for tonight, and just to remind everybody, I love workshops. We're all getting used to this. We have approximately 25 minutes before the scheduled city council meeting. and I don't want to skip through anything, but I do want to be conscious of that hard stop, Dan, okay?
Hello again. This is basically an update of the 4-year odyssey that has been, or probably more than that, 6-year odyssey that has been Route 4, specifically by the boat launch and Lakeshore Drive. Lakeshore Drive, we had a project 3 years ago, I believe. We added the center turn lane, maybe it's 2 years ago. And as a mitigation measure for a high crash location, since that installation, there have been very few, if any, accidents. There have been minor accidents, nothing major like there was. And this project that I'm presenting here by the boat launch is the other half of the original project scope intention. So DOT with the city held, it's all in your packet, but had half a dozen public meetings with regards to this section of road. We had 2 meetings at the Central Maine Community College, specifically as this study was being completed by DOT by Ed Hanscom. It was basically looking at what functional improvements can be made in this area to help improve safety. Back in 2006, I believe, Goro Palmer presented a study where they had a proposed roundabout at this location. That met with some angst by residents, and this project was funded based on those cost estimates through the ATRC process by the council. Basically, we put in the high number of the roundabout, and then we said, as part of the state's roundabout design criteria process, you have to do a full-blown feasibility analysis. That's what this in front of you is can a roundabout even happen? Does it meet their safety protocols? If it's not a roundabout, what are the other options that exist to install out there that would improve safety? Long and short, the study is 60-something pages long. If you read it all, you'll see that the 2 slides, the 2 pictures up there show the 2 safety improvements that the Maine DOT is recommending. One is 2 jug handles, one at the boat launch area and one in between Fair, right by Fair Street. And it's a divided highway in between, so people leaving like East Auburn School would exit to the right, get into a left-hand turn lane, cross southbound Route 4, entering the jug handle to head south. And the same thing would occur, people heading south, going to East Auburn School, or headed back north could use that same jug handle. And then below that would be much like Lakeshore Drive, a two-way left turn lane. In the center, 4 lanes remaining, 2 lanes south, 2 lanes north, with that center turn lane. The picture to the right shows a divided highway all the way down past Turner Street, and it eliminates the ability of people to take a left-hand turn onto Route 4. So someone traveling north on Turner Street would either have to turn at like Emerson Toyota or use Jolene Drive like they're supposed, well, we designed to use that light to head north onto Route 4. Long and short of it is, this is as the last project, we did that 50% design, and then we went out to public comment and we came here to present what not the 50%, we did a feasibility analysis on that last project. That's what this is. So I'm here tonight to show you these 2 designs to get your blessing to move forward with a design process, much like we're doing at the other project. The Water District has a very strong interest in this project, as they have the storm drain system in this area actually dumps into Lake Auburn, not into the reservoir side. So they would like to see all those pipes change direction and dump into the reservoir side. So we'd be looking for funding from them as part of this project. Also, they'd like to close the rest area on that side. And as part of that, we'd be looking at making improvements to the boat launch area, as well as providing a trailhead for an eventual trail that would go from the existing boat launch today north along the lake to Lakeshore Drive, off of the highway. So a protected bike lane / walking trail / multi-use path. Questions?
I'll start it off before I open up, just a little point of clarification.
Yes.
So now we're talking about an interagency, if you would, collaborative with the Auburn Water Department?
Yes, they have a very strong interest in having this project incorporate their desires for the stormwater changes as well as their desires for the changes in the rest area.
And just a couple more points, I'm going to open up to the council for comments and questions, of course. You said you did some preliminary steps to mitigate traffic accidents, and we all know that's been a dangerous stretch of Route 4 for quite some time.
Yes.
Do you have any before and after stats? And sorry, but looking through everything, it's really comprehensive, but it was hard for a non-engineer.
They are probably, for Lakeshore Drive, I'm hoping it's included in here.
I have Exhibit 20, which is expected crashes for Lakeshore Drive alternates.
Yeah.
A roundabout definitely seems like it would be bad.
Yes.
Good.
I don't have it right here, but I want to say there were 14 crashes in the 3-year design with, I want to say it was either 4 or 6 of those resulting in injury. So they have a higher crash rating. I think the crash rating at that intersection, the problem with Lakeshore Drive is it also the crash intensity and the number of crashes actually almost went to Blanchard Road because of Roy's Burgers. There were a lot of rear-end collisions at Roy's Burgers before the turn lane was put in. And the crash rating factor, the CRF, was actually over 1, which makes it very dangerous. And I think we're at like 0.2 now or something.
So with
like
that turn lane, crashes and incidents have gone down?
Oh, significantly, yeah. I don't know if, yeah, I was turning to the police chief I don't think we've had a major collision out there since.
So this is being recommended to even further decrease?
The Lakeshore Drive portion of the project is essentially being removed in that's a keep an eye on it and make sure nothing changes approach, because the improvements we made seem to be working. And this is basically the southern end of that high crash concern area.
We'll open this up to councilors at this time. We'll start off to the left now. Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, you were talking about runoff on the boat launch side.
Yep.
Now, is that like on the right side going towards the old Chickadee?
If
That
you're
way?
headed towards the old Chickadee, it would be the left-hand side. So
Okay.
the runoff on the left-hand side or the southbound side of Route 4 runs back into the lake. So
But it's not the drinking water
that is
side.
the drinking water.
That is?
Yes,
And we let the runoff go in there?
yes. We don't that's where it goes today.
You stop that, Dan.
Yeah.
Well, I was also concerned about it going off onto the beach side and having swimming over
Yeah,
there.
some preliminary sketch design work that we've done with the water district, we would actually go below the dam. The reservoir dam would be our outlet for our stormwater. That's what we're looking to do, but we're not it's on a napkin type thing.
And then you were talking about different ways to control traffic up above Lakeshore Drive. And then we've got churches, we've got Tabors over on Lakeshore Drive and other amenities that way. And then we've got church services on the right-hand side of Center Street.
Correct.
But we're not talking about doing any more things to disrupt them, right?
Not at Lakeshore Drive, no.
Okay. And to goof up any of the traffic for the church?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
The off-parking area that they have right now,
Yes.
a lot of big trucks go in there to pump water from the lake.
Yes.
Are they going to be not allowed to be in there, or is this?
The water district's desire is to remove that parking area in its totality. So they would not be able to pump from there. Whether or not they'd make accommodations for them somewhere else in their facility, that'd be a water district question, but they see that area, it's a significant threat to the water source, as well as there's a lot of trash there. They have a lot of problems with it. There'd be other amenities in its place, maybe a picnic area, or, you know, I'm speaking out of turn, and it's their land, but it's not to close it off to the public for use, it's to not allow vehicles to park there.
Thank you.
Councilor?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I was trying to, in my mind, you know, drive through, because I go to Sacred Heart Church.
Yep.
So that does not involve that particular.
We're done out there for now, yes.
All done up there. So we're talking about going into the city.
Correct. Basically the gateway from
Gateway.
rural Route 4 to Center Street, if you want.
Right. We have East Auburn School out in the back
Correct.
there. So you drive me through from East Auburn School if I'm picking up a grandson or something, when I get to, you know.
Right now, if you're headed north on Route 4, well, the idea, we're not at design yet, but it would be, you would head, if you're headed north on Route 4, you'd get to East Auburn just like you do today.
Yep.
But when you leave
Right.
East Auburn, you would be making a right-hand turn with the flow of traffic. You'd be entering a protected lane in the center.
Mm-hmm.
You would wait there for traffic to clear headed south. You would take a 90-degree turn to the left, which would enter a jug handle, essentially a loop that you would come around and you would head back. It would turn you southbound.
Like I see on page 33,
If that's what that picture is, yes.
because if so, then that's good. That's really good.
Not on page 33.
Or
On page 31.
31, let's see. Oh, that's a little different. It's just a partial loop. Oh, but you're leaving the street.
Yeah, it's
You're going into the side of the street to turn around.
correct.
Yeah. I didn't want a car sitting in the middle, you know.
No,
of the
it'd be protected. It's whether or not it be 4-foot Jersey barrier type, whether it be a 2-foot median, the design would be such that you'd be able to see, but you'd be protected and fully covered so that no vehicle's going to hit you head on.
Okay, because I know how it goes when you have the center lane that people are still trying to get used to, you know, where you can get into the center
Yeah,
lane. and
the
wait.
southbound traffic would not be able to enter the same lane that you're waiting in.
Okay, all right, that's a good thing.
Yep.
Okay. I know it's safer than it's ever been along that whole way. And
Yes.
I've lost a lot of loved ones on that Route 4 between there and Turner. And so anything we can do to make that safer is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Titus?
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions and
Yep.
comments. Thank you again for Lake Shore Drive. I mean, getting that under control has been huge, and with minimal amount of
Well,
effect. I mean,
that was actually quite expensive, but yes, minimal
I'm talking
to
about
the
minimal
traveling
amount,
public.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
My concern here is it's a huge effect in terms of maintenance down the road, having a raised median, having people completely change for those that want to just turn around in reverse direction. And I would be, you know, unfortunately, really concerned to see this kind of project go forward there. I don't know if there's enough need to go this far. Maybe we need more crash data of people who are wanting to turn around and end up getting
There are quite, I can
T-boned
get you
because
the
they're-
crash data, but it's a high, I think it's over 1 in terms of fatality, and there was someone got killed there 2 years ago, I think. But yeah.
I
I
really
can
think
get-
we need to vet this fully, because again, we're raising the tables, the maintenance on
That's-
that's going to be incredible.
That's what this report lays out,
Yeah,
is all of
it's,
that.
increase in maintenance is going to be huge, so.
Thank you. Councilor Hayes?
I don't travel a lot that way, or if I'm traveling that way, it's usually straight through. But during the political campaigning, I did put out some political signs, and that's a very dangerous area, as I found out. So something is needed there, certainly, and I guess, you know, I do encourage continuing with this project.
Councilor Lasagna?
You mentioned about Jersey barriers.
Well, it's not a Jersey, as soon as I said it, I shouldn't have said that, but it'd be some sort of protected median. It wouldn't be a Jersey barrier, whether or not it's a They make, if you, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like a 2-foot wide concrete median, 2 feet tall, so you can see over it, but a vehicle would not be able to enter that lane because they would essentially bounce off of it if they tried to come at you. So you'd feel perfectly safe, but you'd have a clear vision. It wouldn't be like the turnpike going through those speed lanes. It's not like that at all.
So you take a right, you merge over to the center lane,
Correct.
and then you'll cross 2 lanes of traffic to get to the jug handle.
Correct.
Thank you.
No additional questions.
I do believe you're moving forward with the study and everything. I think just
Yep.
to summarize, the general consensus here amongst the council is it's good to continue to investigate, though I do think there are some issues
Yep.
being raised. I will
Yep.
say that I am, from hearing from constituents, not keen on denying public access to Lake Auburn, which is one of our greatest assets. I understand the concern the Auburn Water Department has, and as during the planning stages, if you could share that. I think
Yep.
public
Yeah,
access is extremely important.
Essentially, what would happen from here is we'd go out with an RFQ for proposals for engineering firms to help us with the design. As part of that, I'm going to reach out with Sid, see what their quote-unquote end game is, what they would like to see, because the funding we have in place for this will not pay for their improvements. So they're going to have to pony up some cash.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Are there any other questions or comments about this topic? No? We look forward to seeing and hearing, Dan, your reports in the future on this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that said,
Oh, very good.
we are going to, I call this workshop, well, close, right? Okay, we're done. We'll see you all about 7 minutes. Good evening. I'm going to call to order the meeting of December 18th, 2017. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Good evening again, folks. Thank you for joining us. There are two consent items on the agenda today. Would like to entertain a motion to approve these items.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Titus, a second from Councilor Walker. By a show of hands, all those in favor? All those opposed? Abstained? The vote carries 7-0. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes. Is there a motion on the floor to approve the minutes of November 20th, 2017, regular city council meetings?
Motion to accept.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Walker and a second from Councilor Fournier. We're going to do a vote by a show of hands. All those in favor?
Are we doing just the 20th?
Correct. We're going to do each one in turn.
Okay.
All those in favor? 4. All those opposed? Abstain? By a vote of 5, 4, and 2 abstained, we have accepted the minutes for November 20th.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the minutes of November 27th, 2017 special council meeting.
Second.
All those in favor by a show of hands? Do we have any discussion of these minutes right now? Correct me if I'm out of order on this, Sue. Discussion on the minutes?
Is there discussion?
Can there be discussion on the minutes?
Well, if
There's
somebody
corrections.
has a
Is there any,
question,
is there any discussion on these minutes right now before we go to a vote? We'll start off that way.
Or, Mr. Mayor, or probably if there would be any additions or omissions or corrections. So is there any of those as well?
Any errors, omissions, or corrections to the minutes for the 27th of November? Councilor Hayes?
I guess I'm just abstaining from the 20th and 27th, recognizing that I wasn't present for those meetings.
As neither was I. The minutes of the meetings are actually in the packet as well, so we can look at those prior to the city council meeting.
I'm abstaining for the same reason.
Very good, then. I do have a motion on the floor. All of those approve by show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed, abstaining? By a vote of 5-2, we have approved the minutes for November 27th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the December 11th special city council meeting?
Motion to accept.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilor Walker, a second from Councilor Fournier. Is there any discussion? Any comments? By a vote of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Minutes are accepted by a vote of 7-0. Okay. Next item on the agenda is recognition. It's my honor, actually, for the City Council and City staff. We have a special guest with us this evening. He's going to help us acknowledge and celebrate a very important achievement for the Auburn Public Service Department. Now, he traveled all the way here in the snow from New Brunswick, Canada, this evening. So, Gary Lucier is the Director of Engineering and works for the town of, well, hold on, I'm going to get this right the first time, Quispamsis. Quispamsis? Nice. New Brunswick. Okay, and he's served in that capacity since 1987. Mr. Lucier has been a member of the American Public Works Association and its Canadian counterpart, the CPWA, since 1995. He has been involved with the New Brunswick branch and Atlantic chapter in various positions, including director, chairman, vice chairman, and scholarship committee co-chair. He also served at the national level as director on the CPWA board and as a national CPWA president from 2008 to 2010. Gary currently represents the Region 1 on the board of directors of the American Public Works Association. So please, all join me in welcoming Mr. Gary Lucier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It was a lovely drive up from New Brunswick, and if you listen to my wife and my daughter, it was well worth the effort to expend some of their money at the local U.S. Commerce to help shore up the Christmas shopping budget. So I'm just a side note for their shopping adventures. And I do appreciate the opportunity to come to speak to you this evening and make this presentation to your community. When we talk about public works, one of the things that we want to recognize is that your group of public work staff has gone through an amazing process here. They've received accreditation from the American Public Works Association for their organization. Now, what that means is that they're looking at continuous improvement in the public works, the delivery of the public works services. They're looking at your policies, your procedures, and the practices that have been used in the public works department. And what that does is it means that you as a council have the ability now to establish a standard. And I'm sure it's a standard envious of across the river, but we won't go that far. But you have the ability now to set processes that your residents can be comfortable with. They know what to expect when they're talking to your people in the Public Works Department because there's a set policy in place. The Public Works Accreditation Program through the American Public Works began in 1995. And to date, there's 133 accredited agencies. Now, Auburn is the 130th accredited agency, and the first in Maine, the first north of Massachusetts, actually. So you should be proud of the achievement of your people here. There are 387 practices that they look at when they look at the accreditation process. And what that does is they look at compliance, and you set goals for your departments, you set policies and procedures that you are comfortable with, and then you document them, use them as a standard so that no matter who's in the operations side of things, they know what to go to, they know what to do, they know what they're delivering to your residents. They establish a fair and responsible process and a fair and responsible and responsive public works department for your residents. The accreditation process for American Public Works is not straightforward. Auburn applied in 2014. So we're talking a 3-year process to be able to go through, document your procedures, establish your goals, establish your standards, and in doing so, evolved to the point that 2 of the standards that were developed as part of your own process are now being set as examples for other communities to use in accreditation. I believe one is with trench management and another one is with snow and ice removal. So these 2 standards that your community have developed are used as models for all other communities coming forward who want to seek their accreditation. So it is quite an impressive accomplishment. You know, you couldn't have done it without, you know, the input from Dan Goyette, your assistant director Scott Holland, your accreditation Liz Allen, the entire staff really put a lot of effort into it. And speaking to them before the meeting this evening, it was interesting to talk to them about the buy-in, not only from your worship and council, but from the staff, from the different departments, to make sure that you're all on the same page. And that's a great accomplishment if you can get that. And the fact that you're the first in Maine, that's an even better accomplishment. So with that, we just wanted to let you know that it is a proud achievement. You should be proud of your agency. You have set a standard that will allow you to better your department, your operations. It'll allow you to look at your cost savings and your strategic planning for your department, purchasing. All these items have come through the process, and that's something that to be proud of. So really, I would like to take the opportunity now on behalf of the American Public Works Association. It's my pleasure to present formally tonight the accreditation plaque to the City of Auburn Public Services Department. So, Your Worship, and I believe who would be involved in the photo op, but we can have a formal plaque presentation.
I'll be honest with you, I don't deserve anything. I'm going to let these folks take it. But first of all, you know what, everybody? That's outstanding. Very, very
We have one more coming, two more coming. Liz. Liz.
Should be in the photo.
Yeah. Hey, Liz. Nice. Asking us advice.
How are you gonna do this? How are you gonna keep this up?
I didn't do it. No. Talk to me all night.
Okay, well, that was wonderful. Thank you all very much for that again. We're going to move on now to our first open session of the night. We're going to open up the first open session to members of the public that are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business, which is not on tonight's agenda. This is our first real big, our first public session. If we can't keep the comments to 3 minutes, please state your name, your address, and if you could, if you know it, the ward in which you live, just to help us better organize things a little bit on our end for follow-up. So with that said, open session is now open.
Anybody else that wants to talk first?
Sir?
My name is Robert Spencer, Robert W. Spencer. Yes, a lot of people here I don't know, so I just want to give you a very short synopsis. I've owned more property in the city of Auburn than anybody since I'm up around, I don't know, 230 or something. My name is in the registry under Robert W. Spencer a little over 1,300 consecutive times. I want to just ask you a couple of questions and then I'll sit down. Why are you so locked into selling the property on Troy Street to Nathan, whatever, when I can place him on at least 50 different lots in the city of Auburn, and I can just let back here and name at least 50, and it might be as high as 80. Why are you committed to locking on to selling that parcel of land to Nathan? I mean, he can build anywhere in the city. Why is it that parcel?
Thank you, Mr. Spencer, for your question. At this time, the policy of the council during these open sessions is to hear comments, concerns, suggestions.
Okay.
But we're not going to be engaging in any debate or, at this point, question and answer.
I don't see that on the agenda tonight. Are you taking that issue up tonight?
Mr. Spencer, this open session is directed and for the point of things that are not on the agenda.
Well, I don't see it on the agenda. I can't find it. Can you
Troy,
count?
I'm sorry, we can help.
Can you
Mr. Green, if you could, please. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry.
No, don't, Mr. Spencer, never be sorry.
Come back again.
No, you'll be back up soon, I'm
back.
sure. But I'd like to open this up to any other discussion points that are not on the agenda for tonight. Okay. I'm now going to close the open session. There's no unfinished business for tonight's meeting, so we're going to move on to new business. New business. First item under tab 1 of our binders in our notebooks, and there's a public hearing and the approval of our liquor license. Do I have a motion? Excuse me, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Order 121-121-82017, approving the liquor license application for Michael Violet, DBA Upper Level Pizza and Grill, a new business located at 985 Turner Street. Public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Fournier? Councilor Fournier. I have a motion from Councilor Titus and a second from Councilor Fournier. I'll now open the public hearing portion of this up. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this order? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Is there any debate on the council? Start off on the right side. Councilor Young?
Could I ask the chief if there was any findings?
Mayor and council, this is a new application, so we have no history with Mr. Violet being the primary owner and operator. However, we have history of Mr. Violet being employed by George's Pizza for many years, and we've never had any issues with that establishment under their liquor license.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Councilor Lasagna?
No comment?
Councilor Hayes?
No comment.
Councilor Titus?
All set?
Councilor Fournier?
I'm all set also. Thank you.
Councilor Walker?
I wish you would have opened in November.
I got a second on that one. Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the viewers at home that don't know what this address is, could we have somebody explain where this is and what this is a part of? I know, but the public at home that don't get our packet, haven't attended any meetings, don't know.
Sure. This business is located at the Norway Savings Bank Arena. It's the one of the contracts that was approved, leases that was approved at your last council meeting. We welcome them, and I second whoever said that it should have opened in November.
Thank you.
Now, for the vote, we're going to do a vote by show of hands. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstaining? This motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is item number 2. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the order 122-121-82017, which is authorizing staff to issue and file with the city clerk an order of discontinuance for Troy Street.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Councilor Titus.
I would, a point of clarity, that this says public hearing to follow after the vote. So that means we vote first and then there's a public hearing the same tonight?
Yes, and let me get some clarity because that was asked before. Mr. Creighton, could you explain the rules and how, or Denise?
I'm going to ask Michael Chamings, the Economic Development Director, to address that. Michael.
Title 23 of 3026A, 3026 was repealed, so they replaced it with A. After we have the vote, we're required to have a public hearing, and it does not state the dates in that. So this statute is loosely written. What it does state is after we have to discuss it, do the order, and then we have to wait 10 or more business days after the public hearing for the legislative body to vote on this discontinuance. So you vote on it tonight to move it forward. It gets registered with the clerk, and then we have to wait 10 days, which would be greater than 10 days the next council hearing. At that point in time, you'd vote to approve the discontinuance and the order of discontinuance. I think when they wrote this law, it was really more for the legislative body to vote on it. Was more of an intent for towns that has the legislative body being the annual town meeting of the town vote. So it's laid out kind of funny, but that's the way the 6 steps is laid out, so we followed it exactly how it was. We were given this project kind of late into the year. So we're trying to make these fit into the time schedule so they get their tax credits with the Maine Housing Authority.
Thank you very much, Mr. Channing. So to summarize for the council, we vote on this to move this forward. We'll then have public discussion and then another vote, a final vote on this project or after 10 days, which will then put us past the holidays into our next city council meeting. Correct?
That is correct.
So this is 1 out of 2 votes. Very good. Where were we?
Yeah, we're at the discussion phase.
Discussion, thank you. Councilor Titus.
I personally, I'm going to vote no on this tonight, and the reason for that is because I think this project has been moving way too quickly. I think that when we voted and started this project, we didn't know all the details. Now we're under a lot of pressure to get stuff done in a timeline, and we have a lot of public comment and interest in the parking problem around the library, which still hasn't been resolved in my opinion. And I know the pressure's on to get all this stuff done so that we can get the approvals and all, but I'm not going to succumb to that pressure. And I don't believe in the theory that you have to vote on something before you can read what's in it, because unfortunately that's what happens so many times is we vote for an idea and then we find out later that there's issues, but we're already in the weeds already. We have to approve and approve and approve until it gets done. And I just think this is one of those cases where we have not fully vetted this, and I just will not, myself, will not vote for this tonight. Thank you.
I'm going to go back in order. Thank you very much for that, Councilor Titus. Councilor Gary?
Thank you,
Comments?
Mr. Mayor. I know these type of projects are needed. I know that it's going to improve the area. I still have questions about the parking. I know we need to do the study for all around there. I too don't feel totally comfortable pushing this forward without really listening to the public. I've had a few phone calls from constituents that want to go to the library, and I keep assuring them that we'll have parking for them, but they want me to show them where, and I can't show them every place or what we're planning to do. I can't vote for this tonight.
Councilor Walker?
I think it's a project that we need to move forward with. I am sure there is plenty of parking over there, except when they have special events. And in the case of the city of Auburn, we do not make all the parking available for everybody that has special events in this city. I can show you hundreds of times when I owned my own business that the city did not give me a parking lot to bring my people to. So you find ways of getting to these places, and that's not by parking 4 miles away either. There's plenty of room in this city. You just need to give them time to figure this all out, and by voting yes tonight does not mean that you have to vote yes the next time that we come here to vote. There's plenty of time to figure this all out, but I want them to be able to move forward. I don't want to stop them, handcuff them, or anything. So we really need to see the facts that we need a project moving forward and not put handcuffs on these people.
Thank you. Councilor Fournier?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I said at our last meeting that I do think that we need, a lot of residences here for all types of people, for all different types of reasons, different size families, whatever, and we do need those. But I personally feel like I feel rushed through this because I just came on board for one thing, and I too had explained previously that I was concerned about the parking, and I'm concerned about forcing people to walk a quarter of a mile to get to the library, for example. The library is very vibrant. There are all kinds of things going on in the library. There's a lot of programs who have been built over the past few years, several years, since Mamie took over. It's even better than it's ever been. And I would like to see us look at it a little bit further. I think we do need to go forward in terms of getting more information out there. We do need to hear from the public. The public has not had an opportunity to weigh in. So that's where my position is right now. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Councilor Fournier. Councilor Hayes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess 2 thoughts. One, this isn't really a vote on the project or the discontinuance immediate. We're just authorizing the issue and filing, so we are looking forward to the public hearing and public input. The other thought at our workshop mention was made of the project at 477 Minot Avenue, which, correct me if I'm wrong, that project is also going for the same tax credit type financing as this project. And I guess, and I know in the past, this issue came up before where we had two projects, and you know, it comes down to, I think in the end, where would we rather have a project? Because probably, well, and again, probably speaking out of turn, but how likely is it that we're going to get both projects? So I guess in my mind, if we're really looking to put people close to walking work, walking recreation, walking public activities and so forth, I guess to me this is a better location for a project than what I see at 477. And I guess that brings up an issue that I guess I have a question on the letters that go out to abutting property owners and so forth with respect to any project that comes up. Are all property owners, including municipal, quasi-public, or public, and I'm thinking this, like at 477 was the school department in written form advised of that project and in seeking input. And I guess in here, was there early information given to the library with respect to this project? And I guess if somebody can answer that, I'd appreciate it, because I know for you know, residents or businesses, they get written notice, but I'm not sure of public.
Well, the planning.
Excuse me.
Michael.
Yeah, we're going to wait until all the counselors have stated their position. Then we'll come back. Thank you. Councilor Lasagna.
Like Councilor Fournier, I'm new to the council, but I do believe that if I'm reading protocol correctly, that this is just a vote to continue to move forward to look at this project. And I think that it's important to continue to move forward with the project. It seems to me that we'll have adequate time to look at these things. Also, the idea of parking and, you know, preserving what the library, it's such a jewel in this community, what it can do and how people can access it will continue to be a part of the discussion. I think we need to move forward with this.
Councilor Young.
Yes, discontinuing this street, it was said by voting for this discontinuing, there would be a public hearing to find out what the damages would be for the butters and those people that use the street. I don't know, is the library in that category, or is it just people that have abutting property on the street? And the other question is, just because we discontinue the street, does that mean that we're giving the whole street to the developer, or just that portion that abuts them? Because if it's not the whole street to the developer, there would still be some parking spaces left on the street.
I can answer that, actually. Well, we'll put that for follow-up. I don't want to cut you off. Are you?
Oh, okay. So, and if the project shouldn't go through, can we rescind the discontinuing of the street? Because there wouldn't be any reason to discontinue the street if the development didn't go through for some reason. So I don't know, you know, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, basically what I'm asking. I know you got to start someplace.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So we got about 5 points, and I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Creighton right now and his staff to address some of these 5 points.
Yes, I have some comments I'd like to make, but first, what I'd like to do, Michael, is have Doug come up and speak to these issues. He's been working on this project.
Good evening, everyone. If you could just give me one moment, let me pull up something on the laptop here I'd like to show you. I'd hope to keep it open, but it's been closed up, so just a moment here. Now now that I do know the password. Okay, and this may be a little difficult to see, but what I'd like to do is a couple things to make some points and then try to get to answer some of the questions and things that you brought up. Since the special meeting that we had last week, it was clear, and it's been clear for a while, that the parking for the library is going to be impacted by this project should it move forward. And so we took it to heart to do some more legwork over the last week. I was out walking the site, taking pictures, doing some measurements. So I'd like to just report to you, just as of 1 week, what we've been able to at least discover and kind of inventory what's out there. And basically, here we go here, that the current parking area, apologize, we're still working on pointers with this new system here, but right in the middle here.
How about the cursor?
Or use a cursor.
Use the cursor? Oh, it doesn't. Okay.
That parking lot is poorly designed right now, and I did some quick sketching and increased the parking by at least 9 spaces right there. So you know that there are ways and places to increase the parking over what's there right now.
Mr. Green, before you continue, what was the net decrease in loss or net decrease in parking from the Troy Street discontinuance?
That's something I also want to get with you on, that with this older aerial photography, I was able to actually see the striping on the city-owned lot. And while Mamie indicated there were 40 spaces that are used right there, I counted 50 spaces. So there's going to be potentially a loss of parking with this project. That doesn't include the 20 spaces that are on the opposite side next to the railroad tracks of Troy Street. So I've counted up all the other parking areas out there. Right now, if you include the Troy Street and the Pan Am and the 3 of the parking areas, including next to Denny's, there are 70 total spaces that I've counted, pardon me, 70 total spaces that are assigned parking areas, plus another 70 spaces, so there's 140 spaces altogether. 70 are being lost, more or less, by the project if it were to move forward. I counted out there 9 additional spaces that could be created along Library Street. I mentioned to you an additional 9 spaces that could be added. That's another 18 spaces. And then there's another parking opportunity that it's very early in the process, but there's a vacant lot very close to this area. I did a parking layout that could generate 52 spaces. So it looks to me like there are opportunities to offset the loss of parking should this project move forward. So again, this is an early, after 1 week. It's going to take time. And I'll also mention that we've been exploring and reaching out to other property owners for possible leased parking. So those possibilities have not been used up as well. So I can't promise you all the parking is going to be alleviated or brought back with some losses, but there's some positive indications that we can match and replace the parking that could be lost by this project.
The additional 52 spots that you mentioned, is that on the north side of Court Street or on the south side?
All the numbers are from the north side. Okay. We're not doing anything on the other side of Court Street at this point.
There are some other questions from the council, if I could just summarize for you to address. Going down to abutters, and if you could use this just to recap time frame for a lot of us here on the council. We're new or back again. How long has this project been discussed? Do you think this has been adequate time that it's been involved with the previous council? And again, taking into consideration the forward-looking time frame.
I would say there are 2 different time frames of notice and letting folks in the adjacent area, abutters, and the surrounding neighborhoods become aware of this project. The first phase would have been back, I want to say, in August, when there was a zone change that went through the planning board and then on to the city council that was approved. And in the zone change, all the property owners within 500 feet were notified of the zone change. While the zone change wasn't project-specific, we began to let folks know that there was a project that was kind of spurring this request for a zone change. So folks were made aware of it at that point. And then also, that was a point when the librarian, Mamie Nay, became aware of this project, and we began talking about this project and what its implications might be for the parking. So it's been something that we've had discussions with the library for some time. As far as direct abutters to the discontinuance, that's another separate kind of process. And that's something that we've been addressing following the state law that Michael referred to, that letters went out prior to the workshop, I want to say 6 or 7 days before the workshop. There are only 2 abutters to the Troy Street. Actually, there's 3. There are 3 abutters to the existing Troy Street that's proposed for discontinuance. One is Pan Am Railroad. The other is Nico Carrero, who owns a property at 29 Library, right on the corner of Library and Troy Street. And then the city owns the other adjacent property. So we obviously are self-aware of this discontinuance. It's our opinion that the Pan Am property is not actually qualified for any damages, because that property, Troy Street, was created out of the city side on the west side of Troy Street. That's where Troy Street came from. It did not come from any Pan Am property, so they don't have, we feel they don't have rights to any damages. Not to mention that the Pan Am Railroad has their own access. Damages are pretty much determined by the loss of access by losing a street frontage. So both Pan Am Railroad and the property owner at 29 Library Street have been notified in writing, and as the state law says, after this meeting, in moving forward, we are required to send another 2 letters to also the abutters. I'll mention also that we've been in direct communication and met and had a number of conversations with the owner of 29 Library Street, and he is now comfortable with the discontinuance along his property frontage, and he is not going to seek damages, and he supports this project. I'll just pass along to you, and that he is looking forward to picking up some additional land that actually will help his development, his property in the future, for some possible redevelopment. So sorry to go on a little bit long about that. Some other questions that you had mentioned was about 477 Minot Avenue, and at what point did the school become aware of that?
Yeah, Mr. Green, if we could, with all due respect to Councilor Hayes, we'll try to keep it on focus on the Troy Street project.
I'll answer any questions you like.
But yes, let's definitely bring that, because it's a very important point that needs to be addressed, I think. To one other question, and then let's fill in the blanks here. And Council, please let me know if I missed anything. Councilor Young brings up a point about rescinding the discontinuation notice if the overall project, for whatever reason, does not receive state funding. Is it possible that will be written into the discontinuation with Zandler Group, Zand Group, in order to come back?
They are here tonight, incidentally. And I'd be glad to answer that question. And I think what David's question really is something that we've continued to explore, how this discontinuance can take place in conjunction with a project that is not fully approved yet, as we've mentioned a number of times. Both applicants at 477 Minot Avenue and this project will be applying in February, and they won't know for quite a while whether or not either project is able to pick up the low-income housing tax credits. So what is being proposed, and this was in your information sheet, is we wanted to discuss timing of when this could take place. And so what I would say is that we would like to recommend that the council, if you decide to move forward with this, both at this meeting and at the January 8th meeting, that the actual discontinuance would not be filed, nor would it be completed, and we wrote it in here, until the discontinuance would take effect upon receiving written notice from the Zanton Company when they have reasonable confidence that the closing will occur within 90 days, at which time the discontinuance would take place and the city's responsibility for maintenance and care of Troy Street would go away. That gives them the time to see if they're going to be able to get the grant award from the state and pull together any additional financing, so their project would be ready to go, and then we would be notified that they are ready for a closing, and then we would move forward with the discontinuance to actually finalize the actual final filing with the city clerk. So I hope that doesn't get too confusing, but there is a timing thing. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, Mr. Young, that if all those things don't happen, the discontinuance could not take place. Although the staff would like to say that even in the occurrence, the chance that this project doesn't move forward, we still think that this is a good situation to move forward for any future redevelopment possibilities on this site. And we still think we should pursue finding the parking for the library and making this site ready and available so we don't have to go through all these steps again. We don't want to make this developer ready and still be good stewards of the library and the parking.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I ask your indulgence, and to my point, if we had had this information or more information on the parking, then that might have swayed my vote. This is where more of the indulgence is. If Mr. Green could go up to the map, that map there, show us where the library is, and the new parking, other than that last one that's not real close to the library, where all these spaces are, I'd be more apt to vote for this first round of votes.
Fair enough. No, very good point. Mr. Green, if I could trouble you, and before you go up there, you did mention a net loss of 70 spaces. Just for clarity's sake, how many of those spaces were on the, as we're referring to, the north side of Troy Street, which would be above, it's the next block over, north of Hampshire?
And if I could ask the man behind the curtain, Brian, if he could bring a wireless microphone, I would be able to communicate to the public and be able to go up there. But otherwise, I've learned that I'm going like this to the camera if I don't have a way to speak into a microphone.
I'm still a little concerned about this whole man behind the curtain thing. I was not orientated on this.
Pay no
Someone
attention to the
failed.
man behind the
Pay
curtain.
no attention.
Please, yeah.
See, here he is.
Leroy, you're supposed to.
Appreciate that. Okay, thank you. So, apologize for the quick graphics, but this was just whipped together during the afternoon today. Here is the public library right here. Here's Court Street, Spring Street, Library Street, Union Street, and here's Troy Street. I think there was a question, Mayor, about the north side of Hampshire Street.
Correct. If any of those spaces that you're counting.
Here, that's the other area that is under contract that would produce another 32 spaces that's under contract by the Zanton Company with Pan Am Railroad.
But that will not increase the net loss to the library of spaces?
That is not impacting. There are no spaces there right now.
Okay,
it's just
very good. That was my
grass.
question. Thank you.
So let me just try to describe just some of the features and numbers and what I've been able to report to you tonight. For the existing parking that the library has, they've got 14 spaces along Library Street. There currently is a very informal parking area that I counted 12 spaces right here. And then on the other side, this is the area that there are 24 spaces right here, of which 4 spaces are signed for patrons of the library and 20 spaces are signed for the staff or city staff. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at as well. I counted street parking, 13 on this stretch of Spring Street, 7 along and through here. And like I mentioned, I counted 50 spaces up here and 20 spaces in the Pan Am, which is now leased from the city right here. I would say you'd have a hard time getting 50 cars in there because there's no striping now. It's just kind of a European roundabout kind of a thing. And I think that's my basic report. And again, I also took a look at Library Street, which with some improvements, you could fit another 9 street parking spaces there. So while it doesn't, I don't have all the answers for you, but I think it's some progress has been made, and there are some other vacant properties very close to this area that I really can't speak to ownership yet, but I think, again, I did a quick layout and I generated 52 spaces on a nice size vacant lot very close by.
Mr. Green, by the next city council meeting, do you think you could have a little bit firmer numbers and maybe some definition behind them?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Fournier?
Just to add to that, how many units are in this development? And I'm asking that because there could be easily 1, 2, or 3 cars per unit. I mean, that adds to what we're looking for parking places. And will this particular company assure, like, let's say, no more than 2 spaces per unit? Because, I mean, you could fit a lot of cars there. I know what happened on my previous street that I just moved from, so that's why I'm asking from experience.
Okay. This project is proposing 53 units. The parking requirement in this area now with the form-based code is 1 space per unit plus an additional space for every 4 units to allow for some guest parking. I believe the total required parking is 65, 67. I don't have the number at my fingertips, but the parking that they are proposing with both of the Pan Am properties that are under contract, they do meet their parking requirement, and with some additional parking left over. So there could be a few parking spaces allocated for that. As far as the parking need, I didn't really necessarily whether they are prepared or not, but I know that they are prepared at the planning board meeting tomorrow night to make some statements as to their experience on other projects that they manage, that they don't necessarily have more than 1 car per unit with the type of workforce housing that they have, and so that's about as much as I could tell you right now.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Green. Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Crane, do you have anything to add to this?
First of all, I'd like to thank Michael and Doug in particular, for your comments this evening. Thank you, and the work that you've been doing on the parking issue. What I would say also is development, as I've experienced over the years, is not an exact science. When you start on a project, sometimes you don't know exactly how that's going to evolve. And this is an example of that. This project has not been a straight line. There have been some things that we've had to address, like this parking issue. The parking issue has challenged the staff. I think the staff have worked hard to try and find solutions to the parking issue. I've been going to libraries since I was 8 years old. I love libraries, so yeah, I think we can make this project work, and it can be a complement to the downtown that'll be very positive.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Before I put this up to a vote, I just want to make a couple quick comments. First of all, thank you everybody for working and getting us to this point. It's an important point, I believe. Couple points about the library. I'm glad to see library representation here tonight. It shows a great interest. I'm very excited about that, and I hope the library is excited about the potential of 50 some odd new residents going to the library and walking from their home to the library. That might actually be a very good positive here. So with that said, I will state this. As we're moving through this process was started by the previous council. We're dealing with a business environment. One thing that businesses look for around the country is regulatory stability and continuity between administrations. It's an important message right here. This is bigger than just a vote for a product, or excuse me, a building, a process. This is about our messaging that we have to New England about continuity, about what we're doing. So I want us to think about that, not just on this process or project, excuse me, too many P's, but all others that come before the council. So that statement, We have a motion on the floor. I'd like to call a vote by a show of hands. All those in favor of moving this to the next stage, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries by a vote of 6-1. Next item on the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Green. I will now open the session to public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Please. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and just as you're getting comfortable there, just for the record, in case people just turned in, state your name, address, ward, if you could.
Robert Spencer.
Okay.
I've been in the city for 83 years.
You're going good.
Oh.
Where do you live, Bob?
Where do I live? Right now, I live in Mechanic Falls. I wore out my welcome so many times in Auburn. I moved to Mechanic Falls, but we're going to be moving back probably this spring.
Very good.
We may not move into Auburn. We may move into Lawston, but I have to, first off, I have to ask you, are you still having a planning board meeting tomorrow night? You are.
Yes, it is on the schedule.
I think you have to postpone that. You have to notice the public that there is a planning board meeting tomorrow night.
Michael, you want to speak about that?
We did all the proper notifications for the planning board meeting, and obviously we had a snow event where people were calling in that they couldn't make it to the storm, so we didn't feel we'd have enough people to make a quorum. So we postponed the meeting to a time certain, which was tomorrow night, and it was re-advertised and re-notified and on our website. So we took every reasonable step we could to make the public meeting noted.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer?
I think it is not in this morning's paper. And I think that itself is going to make it impossible for you to hold that meeting tomorrow night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spencer, for that comment.
Okay.
We'll take it under advisement.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry.
Now, I have to tell you that this property is dead. Dead, 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 dead. You just don't know it yet. So let me ask you this question. I can't pronounce it. He and I have been talking, and he's going to go look at some properties that he can go on here in the city. Are you going to be angry if he relocates this development to another lot in the city?
I'm glad this is coming up as, the first time we can kind of set the stage here as a council and myself as a mayor. Sure. We're going to refrain from answering questions directly as a council on these questions, especially questions that might be rhetorical. I will say this for the record, though, without answering your question, that government is non-emotional.
What's that?
We are non-emotional. I personally would like to treat everything in a non-emotional fashion. So being angry or not being angry is irrelevant.
All I'm asking you is if he comes back Thursday afternoon and says, I'm going to change the location of my project, are you going to be upset? Are you going to say, great, I think that's the greatest news we've had?
Thank you very much for your comment, Mr. Spencer. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Now you have...
Mr. Spencer, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Well, I'm sorry. Let me add, do you want to discuss this tonight, or do you want to discuss it in Superior Court?
Mr. Spencer, at this point, public discussion is open for comments from the public.
You're not going to shut me up.
I don't want to shut you up.
You tried to shut me up before.
Mr. Spencer.
You got a huge, huge problem, and you don't even know it.
Mr. Spencer, if you could please be respectful of everybody else that might want to speak. I have given you fair...
Hold it! Do you realize that there is a party in that green house on the corner that has a letter stating they've tried to buy it for 6 years, and they have a letter that they're going to provide me tomorrow that they were quoted a price of $400,000 for that property?
No, Mr. Spencer, thank you very much. Your time is up. I please ask you to take your seat again in the audience.
Well,
Thank
I'll
you.
be glad to discuss it in court, but I will tell you, when he and I come back...
Mr. Spencer, that is it, please. Now,
Shut me up.
Mr. Spencer, we have rules. We must follow the rules of common decorum and courtesy.
Good, we'll discuss it in court. No,
Thank you.
But he's going to come back tomorrow.
Is there any other public statement? Or would anybody else like to speak, please?
Renee Simonitis, Ward 3, 9 Oak Street, Auburn, Maine. I wrote this down, so I'll try to speak quickly because I know I'm limited in time. I'm writing it down so as to keep on track. This country is at a crossroads, and I've been recently convinced that the choice of one road or the other is more significantly being made at the local level. From net neutrality to affordable housing, the average citizen is almost continuously forced to decide what view of government and the economy they're going to adopt. While eliminating the Troy Street parking lot poses a problem to our pretty fabulous local library. And as I found out today, just by looking on the City of Auburn's Facebook page, as I found out today, the citizens living in the immediate area who will also lose access to convenient winter relief parking. That parking lot right now is also winter relief parking for local citizens. I see the greater problem which exists in the attitude communicated so clearly by Ward 5's Councilor Leroy Walker at the December 11th City Council workshop. The ever-narrative manipulating Sun Journal simply quoted him as saying, "We have to stop scaring away developers." However, that wasn't where Councilor Walker stopped. He went on to say, with the fear of how they'll affect the people who already live here. People like me, living literally 2 blocks up from this proposed project location. This, in my opinion, is the real problem with the Troy Street project. The loss of parking is a problem, yes, but not the main problem. The main problem is the audacity of belief that it is your job to plan our city and our future with our money for us. That's a general concern. As to a specific, objections to this Troy Street and other similar affordable housing projects. What if the vision we're often sold surrounding these projects? You know, the altruistic vision of helping all those really responsible poor people who need a little helping hand. The hardworking but minimum wage earning mom and dad with 2 kids who just need a good place to live. And won't someone please think of the college kids? Or maybe the better view that we're often handed is we have to attract the young professionals to our area. Let's see here, lost my track here.
Keep going.
Did you know, I bet you did, that Xanton, and I'm wagering the other developers of such similar projects are networked with social services. For Xanton specifically, it's Safe Voices. When the apartments are first done, it's my understanding that it'll be first come, first served within the income guidelines. So maybe at first, we house that really responsible, hardworking family. However, after the initial fill-up, a waiting list is started, and the networked government social service referrals take top priority, making it so that those who are in need are sorted by the hierarchy of those plugged into government services, leaving those who aren't on the outside of your help. At best, you're taking the library overflow and winter relief parking and creating a government-subsidized halfway house. At worst, you're creating a government slum in an area which is already known as a place people don't want to go. I know this reputation exists because I live in the middle of it, and I hear it all the time. Lastly, I'm here because I have 3 children who will be left to clean up the mess you're making today. See, Xanton gets tax credits from Maine State Housing in exchange for making a number of those apartments affordable to low-income renters. This is not a permanent arrangement. Most of their projects have the agreement for a set period of time, as I understand it, often tied to the length of the mortgage. 30 to 45 years is standard. The Troy Street project is 45 years of affordable housing. When the tax credit stops, so too does the affordable housing. But you guys don't have to worry about it. Most of you are going to be dead in 45 years. Let's see here, worry about it, you're dead. That was a good line. And consider this, Xanton's first project is now 13 years old. If that project's agreement was 30 years, it's nearly halfway to not being affordable anymore. The choice you make here for this project includes the consequences of your role in shifting the cultural understanding of whose job it is to supply housing to the people. I stand here today as a representative of my family of 5 who qualify for those apartments. We're within their income guidelines, and being 5 people, we're certainly qualified. At the same time, a voice of the public who believes it is not your job, and I don't appreciate your role in causing the shift away from the free market where the consumer has the power toward the government as our benevolent caretaker. Thank you for your time.
Sorry, can I have your name again, please?
Renee Simonitis.
Simonitis. Thank you very much, Renee.
Mr. Mayor, if she wants to give that to the city clerk, who can make part of the record.
Thank you, Ms. Simonitis.
Joe Gray, Soapers Mill Ward 5. A lot has been said tonight about the parking, and that is a big problem, and Councilor Fournier made quite a show of it a couple weeks ago at the library. Now she's backed off. I don't know why. Other than the parking, well, let's continue on the parking for a little bit. The owner of the engine house has been after the city for over a year to find parking. They didn't help him at all. He stated that publicly. Now when a big developer comes in, we jump through all the hoops. We want to buy more land to put up parking, which doesn't make sense to me that we want to give away this parking and then lease more. So this project costs even more than it already costs us. It doesn't make sense. Further, this project has been a travesty from the beginning. The city made a mistake. They thought the lot was $45,000, so that's what they quoted these people. But the lot was really $378,000. And though these people are going to make millions of dollars on those tax credits, they couldn't pay our price. So we had to give them $333,000 of land for nothing. We got nothing out of that. We give them a road. We rezoned the whole place for them. They didn't even give us a retail establishment, which 62 Spring Street is going to. They're giving us 2 or 3 retail spaces in their building. So at least the city can get something out of it. Now it's come up that they're going to give us $40,000 a year in taxes, and everybody says, oh, yay. But that doesn't even begin to cover the school expenses of the 12.91 kids each year that are going to go to our schools. This project makes zero financial sense. Zero. And to Councilor Titus's point, this was pushed through very quickly. Sorry, I don't have glasses on. I can't read that.
Mr. Gray, this is your time, though. Excuse me, sir. This is Mr. Gray's time.
But this gentleman was correct. There was a man at the library a couple weeks ago who said he's been trying to buy that property from the city for over 4 years, and the city continuously said no. So why now do they change their tune and, again, bend over backwards to help somebody who's going to make millions of dollars?
and we're left holding the bag on this. It does not make financial sense for the city at all.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. We'll talk. Okay. Is there any other comments from the public on this in open discussion?
Good evening, Council. My name is Andy Jackson. I work for the developer of the Zanton Company. This is Nathan Zanton. Just going to take one quick note. So we're here tonight because we've made the proposal for the Troy Street site, known as the Troy Street project. Just want to, how much time do I have?
About 3 minutes, Mr. Jackson.
We believe that the community, everybody's better off if there's safe, quality housing that supports people through all stages of their life. That's what we're trying to provide. We think that by bringing professionally managed, high-quality apartments to downtown Auburn, we can plug into all the amenities in downtown Auburn, the bus line, the library. We can build on the city's investments that the city's already made in revitalizing Hampshire Street, increase investment in the neighborhood by sponsoring a $7 million construction project. The 53 households that would be coming to the building will be, each household will be a little economic engine of people who are living in downtown Auburn, shopping and working. They'll have access to transit to get to their jobs. And you know, on the topic of parking, we tell all of our tenants that we can only provide one parking space per apartment. That's what this project is structured for. And people who, to get to Councilor Fournier's question, people who have more than one car tend to go elsewhere for their housing, so they self-select. So in our other properties, we've become very comfortable with a 1-to-1 parking ratio of parking spaces to apartments. And then if I could just hit a few other points that came up this evening. There's going to be a minimum of a year to study the parking options that we've been talking about, because that's how long it's going to take us to get to construction, even optimistically. We've had 2 meetings with the director of the library, with her personally. We've sponsored a neighborhood meeting on November 30th. We offered a tour of one of our properties in Lewiston on December 11th, and also a tour of the Troy Street site to open to the council, the planning board, any members of the public. That was advertised on the website. So we've done a lot of outreach to try to encourage conversation about our proposal. Just to answer another comment that came up, only 20% of our apartments would be set aside for survivors of domestic violence from Safe Voices, not 100%. So only 20% of the apartments at most would have that set aside. The other 80% would be available first come, first serve. And we are offering at least 20% of the apartments market rate. So we're trying to target as wide a variety of incomes as possible. And I would just add, we don't personally benefit from a TIF. We don't personally benefit from the tax credits. Those go to pay for the cost of the project, and they go to leverage financing from Maine housing and tax credits. The millions of dollars of tax credits that support this project go to pay for the construction.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members? Oh, I'm sorry, Nathan.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just be very brief. Nathan Zanton from the Zanton Company in Portland. Thank you for your time. We have appreciated all the time that the staff has put into this and the time that this council has put in executive session, that both the previous council and this council in executive session and in open session. And we are here to, we want to work with you, and we are happy to answer any questions that you might have going forward. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak during open session? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move on to the next item on the agenda. Councilor Hayes.
Just having heard tonight, and because of the planning board meeting tomorrow, which will bring public to a public hearing, I would hope that quite often we don't see the minutes from the planning board directly, but I think on this matter, maybe that would be an important input prior to our next meeting. So I would ask that whatever minutes that are taken at the planning board meeting be forwarded to to the council.
Great point, Councilor Hayes. Thank you very much. Mr. Creighton? Thank you. Okay, so moving on. Next item on the agenda is item number 3. We'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Gearing?
I move order 05-12182017, authorizing the city manager to provide the Lewiston Auburn Transit Committee a 0% interest rate loan not to exceed $150,000 from the city's general fund.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Gary and a second from Councilor Walker. Any discussion from the council on this? I know we had a workshop earlier this morning, or earlier today, discussing this topic. Any comments? Now for a vote by show of hands. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstain? This motion carries for the vote of 7-0. Committee reports. I know this council is just getting going on committee reports, so I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple things that I have done, and I'd like to open it up for a minute or two from each counselor. Talk about what's going on in your wards, if you could, community in general, and basically any updates that you think is important for the rest of the council and the public to know. So that's being said, let me just start off. A lot of meetings, a lot of orientation, a lot of reading on my end. I did attend several public events. Going backward in time, Temple Shalom had their lighting of the menorah yesterday. It was a fabulously well-attended event. I encourage all of you to get out there next year. They had about an hour-long performance from the Maine State Music Society in Yiddish, which I don't speak, but fabulous nonetheless. Very enjoyable. So I definitely thank them for reaching out to us, or to myself for that invite. Also, we attended on Friday, myself, Councilor Walker, Councilor Fournier, can't remember if anybody else is there, but a ribbon cutting for upper level restaurant over in Norway. Ice Arena? Oh, yes, and city staff too, I can't forget that. Jill was there, Denise was there, Peter was there, and a lot of other folks too that are very numerous. It was a very well-attended event. It got some good press on Saturday, and it was a nice ribbon cutting. It's nice to see Norway coming back alive, and I was just overwhelmed today by staff in my company coming up to me, who are devout hockey fanatics, saying how great it was to finally have affordable food at Norway Savings Bank. And I keyed on that word, affordable, and they gave me, because they're pretty cost conscious, gave me some comparisons on food with the old purveyor and this purveyor, and it's a marked improvement, at least for the consumer. A couple other things too, just to give you some heads up on. A new restaurant opened up on Minot Avenue, Christie's. Great breakfast, homemade corned beef hash. I don't get paid for my endorsement, but I went there to scope it out. She'll be having a ribbon cutting soon. The food is top rate. Encourage you all to know that. Also, communications, just touch on that finally. We do have a wonderful newsletter called Auburn Connections. It can be found on several spots on our website. It is chock full of information. I would encourage all staff and all counselors to share Auburn Connections monthly as it comes out. And encourage all your constituents to sign up for alerts on the homepage of auburnmaine.gov's website. Extremely informative. I was actually extremely impressed with the level of sophistication that our IT has with regards to communication. So good stuff there. We need more and more folks to look at that so we can get more feedback and keep moving Auburn forward. That is my report. I'm going to turn it over to our city councilors' reports. I'm going to start off on the right with Councilor Young. If you have something, let us know, please.
No report this time.
Councilor Lasagna?
I'll be attending the Auburn Safety Watch, I guess it is, meeting. Is that right, Chief Crowell? That happens, that has actually started to become more of a community conversation group in addition to what's going on in the neighborhood. So I'm looking forward to that on January 11th, I think.
Thank you. Councilor Hayes.
Actually, just invite people to visit an old business that reopened for the season. Of course, that's Lost Valley. I think with new ownership, there's a lot of things happening out there. I think It's great for skiers, great for snowboarders, but I think more importantly, if people are interested in seeing how snow is made, come out and see it, how it's graded and groomed and so forth. It's good. There's a good eatery there. Our mayor's wife is in the kitchen, and it's a good place to go just to watch, see. And the lodge is set up such that you can see the slopes, you can see the skiers, see the borders. You know, I think with new equipment out there, it's amazing the amount of snow that they have out there. They're working with some natural, but most of it's man-made. And it is interesting to see how it is actually prepared and groomed out. So invite you all out. Plus, they are putting a small brewery in the basement, so soon there will be a local draft available there as well.
I think we have Councilor Titus's update now.
Here we go, just a little bit.
Just to add to while Councilor Titus opens up his folio, I went in there just to grab breakfast and not ski this weekend as well. I was eating out a lot this weekend. And yes, if my wife's watching, the food is phenomenal. And you just can go there and eat or relax if you'd like without actually skiing. So it is a nice destination on that side of Auburn. Councilor Titus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And aside from that, I mean, we'll go on to business. Tomorrow afternoon is a sewer district meeting at 4 o'clock. It's their monthly meeting. We'll be reviewing the budget for upcoming 2018. But more importantly, on Wednesday at 4 o'clock, the water district will be meeting. But at 5:30, there will be a public hearing on the budget for both the sewer and the water district. So we'll have all the information there, and we'll be approving that budget. So welcome anybody who wants to stop by for that one. It's at 5:30. The meeting's at 4, so anybody's welcome to go to the meeting, but it's 5:30 is when the actual budget will be voted on. And also on January 2nd, Sunderland Drive Neighborhood Watch Group will be meeting. They meet at Sam's Italian Sandwich Shop right there in the corner of Court Street, their new building. And I just want to say these neighborhood watch groups have been very, very good. The past couple of years I've been in council. Anybody on the council who has a chance to go to them and get involved, I mean, Councilor Walker knows the importance. He has a premier organization that anybody should follow. But they're all starting to gear up, and I think they're getting more interest. So
what time?
It's at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, Sunderland Drive, January 2nd.
Thank you very much, Councilor Titus. Yes. Councilor Fournier?
Oh, yes. I wanted to just add a little piece to what Mayor Levesque has mentioned about the Ice Arena's food vendor. And this vendor is a family-owned and operated vendor, and it's a small business. So I appreciate, wish them all the best, and appreciate having this small business come to Auburn. So that's great. It sounds like we're talking about a lot of small businesses starting to pop up around here, which is what we've been wanting. It's really great. I'm just going to mention two things. One is one of my goals as the mayor's representative to Auburn School Committee is to have an informal meeting over coffee with school committee members and the superintendent on a one-to-one basis. So far, I've met with 4 of them, and my purpose is to build relationships, to build bridges between city council and school committee, and to convey Mayor Levesque's message of support and help, accountability to the budget, and work collaboratively throughout the year, not just at budget building time. At these meetings, I share my own experiences and my goals and ideals for our city and for our schools, and I listen to those of the school committee members as well. I just think it's a really nice way to get started. These have been extremely positive, and so this week I will meet with our superintendent and school committee chair on Wednesday. And speaking of Wednesday, that will be my first school committee meeting that I will attend. And we have school committee orientation, which will commence at 6 o'clock, and to be followed by a regular meeting at 7, and reminding the public that all school committee meetings are open to the public. And I have one more meeting to schedule, and that is with Mamie, our head librarian, after the holidays, because there's just too much to pack in the last couple of weeks, including next week. So that will be the other committee that I'm working on is the library, and so we'll be meeting to talk about ideals and goals and where we see us headed, the library headed for the benefit of our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Walker.
Thank you. Big meeting, December 26th, that's Tuesday night at Rowley's Diner, United New Auburn Association. We'll be there at 6 o'clock, day after Christmas. We should all have a lot to talk about, our all new clothes, I think, to probably wear for that night. So we'll all look great anyways. Tuesday the 26th. December 28th, Thursday night, 6th Street Congregational Church. That's United New Auburn Association and the Neighborhood Watch, which is put on by the Auburn Police Department. We'd love to have you all come and talk about your neighborhood. 6:30 at 6th Street Congregational Church, the 28th. And also in our package, which you can go online, we have the Mid-Maine Waste Action Corporation, all of its report for the month. We talked about it in our meeting, and hopefully you can make some sense out of the big package. We try to give you all the facts and how much waste we burn out there and what the profit from that waste is. The other thing, January, I believe it's the third weekend, the United New Auburn Association will be working side by side with the Recreation Department and the Auburn School Department. We're going to do a sliding hill at Sherwood Heights School, and that's going to be on a Sunday, the 28th. It may be the fourth Sunday, I'm sorry, but it'll be on Sunday. It's going to go from 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock there to 3 o'clock. So we're going to try to make a skating rink up there and a big sliding hill. So keep your eyes open for a flyer. There will be a flyer going around. Recreation Department will put one out, and United New Auburn Association will also put one out in the New Auburn area. And of course, our news report will come out also January and February for the New Auburn News, so be looking for that. Thank you.
Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This last week, I attended LATC's meeting. I wasn't officially put on there, but I've been a stray cat, so to speak, a member from Lewiston. I was appointed by the Lewiston Council to fill one of their vacant seats until Auburn could fill the slot. And we talked a lot about the subject we just had of the cities floating the loan until the federal money comes in so that we could pay Western Maine for their services they provide. We also talked briefly about a disruptive policy, passenger policy, that is an ongoing thing. I've had 3 phone calls and 2 letters from constituents talking about people disrupting by smoking in our bus shelters. We don't have Lewiston Auburn Transit Committee or staff. There's not enough of them. We don't pay them to go around to police, so to speak, our bus shelters. So if you see people smoking, call me, call ABCOG and talk to Marsha. If it's really, really bad, I guess you can call the police if it's a nuisance thing. If there's any drinking and stuff like that, I guess that is a nuisance and you need to call the police. I mean, we want the safety of anyone that would like to take our service. I also was privileged, ABCOG meets usually the second Wednesday of the month at 12:30. Any riders of the transit system are welcome to attend. There's a time when anyone can speak on the subjects that they think passengers think, or people that come think that we should hear. I was also privileged to attend an ARTC meeting also held at ABCOG, and Greg Netto spoke. He did a very good discussion on funding for infrastructure projects that due to the I just can't pronounce tonight. Due to congressional cuts, due to the tax shift of the proposed plans in Congress, it means that more state and local funding is going to be cut, so we're not going to have as much money possibly as we've had today to pay for our road improvements and our bridge repairs and other types of infrastructure like maybe internet and stuff. So, I mean, I believe we need to lower our taxes, but it's got to be more of a balancing act. I also attended the Park and Recreation Advisory Committee, and we talked briefly about the upcoming potential, well, the city's budget and what we need to put in for our capital improvements and how we're just now molding it so that we can turn it in, to add it into our city's budget so that the council can scrutinize it and help us plan to make our programs and things better. We also talked briefly about some of the upcoming events for Winterfest, which the good Councilor Walker mentioned about what the United New Auburn's going to be doing up at Walton School. Winterfest, I'm sorry, Sherwood Heights. You're right, that's a by far better hill. The other thing is, a lot of people have noticed that there's a lot less of me, and they're going to be seeing a lot less of me, and I mean that in a good way. A lot of people have been asking me if I've been sick. No, I've chose the new direction, and I'm changing my life and making improvements. And the more I tell people that I'm doing it, the more I'm going to stick to my goal. And as of today, I've come within, again, I mean, I fluctuate 3 or 4 pounds. I've come again close to making a 150-pound weight loss. I started, and I'm not afraid or ashamed to admit it, I weighed 380.8 pounds. I'm down to just shy of 230 pounds. My goal is to get down to 200, and then I can reevaluate what's happening with my system. My A1C has gone from 8.8. My last one I just had last Friday was 4.7. The time before that was 5.0, and the time before that was 4.7. So those that know, A1C is your 3 months blood sugar, and it means that my blood sugar is under control and I'm more normal than some people. So I'm asking everybody, if they see me getting into the sweets, please do not offer me any sweets, and I need to be good. So I thank you, and also my New Year's resolution is to try to talk more on point and try not to try to over-explain everything when I want to do something or try to say something.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, Councilor Gary. That's awesome. Well done, well done. We're going to move over to the city manager report. Mr. Creighton, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I appreciate all the comments from yourself and from the members of the council. A few comments. I'd like to let everyone know that the Assistant City Manager, Denise Clavette, is very busy working on the strategic planning effort and also the work plan to wrap that up. We also have the department head orientation, and we are looking at how we're going to be able to fit all that in so that it makes sense to everybody. So I'll work with the mayor and the rest of you in trying to find the best time to do that. I also want to give you an update on an initiative that the city is doing with a number of municipalities in Maine, the city of Portland, city of South Portland, city of Lewiston. This is an initiative similar to, I would say, the tobacco settlement. You may not be familiar with this. Those of you who are new as elected officials, the city has entered into an agreement with Trafton, Matson, Bello, and Fournette, with Jamie Bello as the attorney on unfair trade practices regarding opiates. And Jamie Bello has sent out 27 letters to various pharmaceutical companies, and the city would be compensated for this, and the firm would be able to get a contingency from the proceeds that they're able to collect. So the opiate issue is a significant issue, as we all know, not just for this city, but for this state and this country. So we are working closely with them, and we wish them well in what they're doing. I also want to report that I was at the Metro Chamber of Commerce board meeting recently, and they have acquired the Lewis and Auburn Economic Growth Council. They're taking on those responsibilities. We'll continue to monitor that and work with them on that. I also want to report that Chip Morrison from the Lewis and Auburn Joint Charter Commission has stopped by, and he has provided both the City of Auburn and the City of Lewiston with the documents related to the Lewis and Auburn Joint Charter Commission, with support studies and reports that they've utilized in their work over the past 3.5 years. So you're aware of that. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creighton. We're going to move over to Jill Eastman, Finance Director, City of Auburn. Monthly finance report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. You have the report for the end of November. We are 5 months into this fiscal year, and we, as far as our general fund, we're right on point, right where we normally would be at this time. I didn't have anything really stick out and give me any angst. I provide you a comparison report with the budget actual for this current year as it matches against last year. So this report used to be 4 pages, but over the last few years it has increased to 20 pages. And we added a section in here for EMS because that was a new program that we took on. So there's 3 pages that are about the EMS program. The first one shows you the total of our outstanding accounts receivable, and that's since the beginning of this program. And then the other 2 are for just for the month that I'm reporting on. Then you also have a report that shows the special revenue accounts, which those accounts are grants or monies that is raised for a specific purpose. It stays with that purpose until it no longer exists. So it's not part of our budget. And then I have a report on the Ingersoll turf facility and Norway facility. I normally don't go into very much detail, but with new counselors, I would like to open an invitation that if you would like to come and meet with me so we could talk about the report and what it means and how to read it, I would be more than happy to do that. Just give me a call or an email and we'll set up a time that we can do that.
City Manager Creighton, could we possibly do that as maybe to save Ms. Eastman's time? Maybe another orientation, maybe after the new year? That way we could have multiple people.
Yes, we can certainly do it that way as part of the department head orientation, or again, as Jill's indicated, if people have additional questions or would like to spend some time with her, she's certainly happy to do that.
Okay. So I asked this my own company, we make a payroll on Friday?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Good. You always have to ask. If you don't ask, that's when you don't make it. I'll entertain a motion to accept and...
Yeah, you're saying there's questions? You think I was going to just sit here and be quiet?
That's why I was looking this way, Counselor Titus.
Oh,
but
okay,
yes,
very
you got me.
good. Thank you
got
very
me.
much. Yeah, and Jill knows. I mean, I can't just, I
Can't
have a
just
few
let me go.
questions, so that's okay, Jill.
That's fine.
Thank you very much for your report. I was just looking at the revenue stream, and I was looking at EMS transport, shows like 394,000 that we've booked as of this statement in revenue that's received. And as I understand it, when you receive the money, it's booked as revenue. You're not, if we didn't get paid, it's not on this page.
That's correct.
So I did also notice that year-to-date is around $900,000 in EMS that's been billed year-to-date. Is that, if I look at that correctly?
Probably. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
I think I'm seeing the totals year-to-date
Yes,
billed like
900,000.
900,000.
Yeah.
So between the uncollected and what we're not going to get, because this total includes all the adjustments and write-downs
That's right.
added back in.
And the page before that page that you're looking at
Right.
shows you the new charges, any payments, any adjustments, which those adjustments as
Insurance adjustments.
they're insurance adjustments, right?
And it's always good to see that beginning balance and the ending balance. The ending balance should be lower, because that means we're collecting more than we're billing, which is a good thing.
Right.
All right, okay. So do you see that, I see that that's down from last year just a little bit, a tad, as far as revenues, that
Yeah,
394?
it could be just a timing thing.
Okay. I'd appreciate maybe, I know that with everything changing in medical these days and payments and what we get paid, especially from Medicaid and the mix of clientele that we have, maybe if you could, find out if there's you see any kind of a trend that we should know about. I mean, I think that's something that's going to be changing all the time, and I certainly would like to know.
Yeah, I can look back at last year at this time and see where we were.
Yeah, because I just want to follow the trend, because I know that when you have that patient billed, that generally means they have no insurance. When you see the patient was in your billing chart, that just means you billed the patient because that was not paid for by insurance. And that's the one that I'm really concerned to watch, too.
That's correct. And sometimes it'll go in that bucket in the beginning, and then they find out that they have insurance, so you'll see there's an adjustment column. And that adjustment column is related to that. I mean, they may not know what their insurance company is at the time they do the pickup. And so it may end up in the bucket patient, and then they find out later they have insurance, it gets pushed over to there. The majority of our calls, I will say, are Medicare or Medicaid.
Medicaid.
So
I'll be really curious. I mean, I'd be concerned to watch that number, because I know that hospitals have the same problem with collections. You can bill all you want to. It's what you actually get that we really need to watch. So I appreciate that you're doing this, but,
if you look at the Medicare, though, and the insurance, the one that has a high number, 121 days, is the patient.
Mostly it's the patients, like almost $400,000 that we're writing off on a regular basis,
We
I
are,
understand.
every month, yeah.
All right, going to the expense page, I just want to reiterate the last time I think I'd asked about the legal services. I know they're part of the manager's budget, but I would like to see a breakdown of what we think the legal services have been year-to-date somehow, if there's some way.
Yeah, I can do that.
Because I know that we used to have a separate line, now we have it buried in another budget, and I would just like to know what that is.
I'll get you that.
Debt service, I noticed that was at 100% or 91%.
The first half, okay. Debt service is broken down normally in 2 payments. In the fall, September 1st, we pay the principal amount, the entire principal for the year, and an interest payment. And then in March, we pay just an interest payment. So
Okay.
it will always be that way. It will
see.
always be 90% or more in September, and then reach 100 in March.
Okay, and do I notice on the turf facility, we're right 13 grand in the red right now, is that year-to-date?
Yes.
Did I read that? So that's
Year-to-date.
year-to-date.
They did some capital purchases that were authorized by the council, so, and they're just gearing up, and their revenue stream is just gearing up right now, so.
Very good. Thank you, Jill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor
Yeah,
Titus.
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? I skipped that portion, and I shouldn't have. I know we're all orientating ourselves to the P&L, so.
I got a question
Councilor
for
Walker.
Jill. I've been asked a couple times about the new ambulances. Have we put out a bid? Have we put together some kind of a contract? Or do we have new ambulances coming?
They're coming, yes.
Is that all we know at this point about it? I mean, how much? Do you have that idea?
Do I have, well, the council
How about
author-
for the next meeting, if you would?
Okay,
Okay.
I can do that.
Councilor Gary, please.
Don't worry, Mr. Mayor, it's a tame question, or,
You're fine, absolutely fine. It's before 9, so we're good. We're on schedule.
thank you. For future, could we have some of these pages printed a little bit bigger? I can't see them. Some of this print is smaller than an ant.
I know the one, this special revenue one is, yeah.
There's 2 or 3 of them.
That's about the only one that's real small.
I'd greatly appreciate it.
I'll make you a special pages.
Thank you.
Because they're not, they just won't fit on one page if they're bigger. So.
Any other questions or comments from the council before I move on?
Make a motion to accept the, I make a motion that we accept the financial report as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Titus, second from Councilor Walker. Show of hands, all those in favor? All those opposed? Abstain? None being, this motion carries 7-0. Open session right now. Members of the public, please, you are invited to speak before the council about any issue directly related to city business which is not on the agenda. I will now close the open session. We do have one executive session tonight to discuss a personnel matter. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So be it.
Seconded.
I have a motion from Councilor Walker and a second from Councilor Fournier. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstain? None being, we will break at this point into executive session. Thank you very much. We'll be back shortly.
They're just the right size, though.
You ready? Are we on? Okay, great. I declare council out of executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
I have a motion from Councilor Young and a second from Councilor Fournier.
No, that was somebody else.
Titus.
Councilor Titus. And a second from Councilor Fournier. To adjourn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Abstained? Opposed? None being, this meeting is